The young lady had everything one could dream of. The enormous inheritance left to her by her parents brought not only wealth, but also a certain sense of power. In addition, she had the high status of a countess and owned many islands that were owned by her family, which added to her respect among the aristocrats. The family's power extended even to the surrounding sea waters. But now, this was more a memory than a reality. The girl lay on the sandy shore, listening to the sound of the surf. She opened her eyes and turned to Mikkel, feeling a slight trepidation and tenderness in her heart. Then she hugged her brother, thinking that their world had once been whole, but now it seemed to be torn apart and lost forever. But more accurately, all of this was merely a foretaste of the future. Events would soon descend with renewed force. Right now, they were heading somewhere with their brother, determined and focused. The aristocrats assured her that the lady would receive her title again as soon as the young heir came of age, and this promise gave the girl hope. And since Heiress had already crossed the 20-year mark, it was worth organizing a coming-of-age ceremony, because whoever was the first to give her flowers could count on favor, and perhaps a position as count. At this time, Mikkel turned to his sister, and she only turned to him, hugging him tightly, and as if conveying her thoughts without words. She also told him he shouldn't cry, because no one should see him cry. The boy agreed, and the main character gently explained that there was no shame in crying. He was still a child. If they showed weakness, they would be treated with disdain. Now they had only each other to rely on. There was no one else to trust. The young man then asked if it was possible to trust at least some people, and the girl replied that no one would feel sorry for them. These people simply wanted to seize their parents' inheritance without regard for the children's feelings. Mikkel asked if that meant they were bad. The girl wondered whether it was worth explaining to a child who was not yet 13 the harsh realities of life, full of betrayal. Still, she smiled and replied that it was better to know the truth than to live in illusions. A solution was born in her thoughts. They could all be considered enemies. Afterwards, Heiress and Mikkel set off. The aristocrats discussed how the family who had held the funeral the day before was now riding around luxuriously in a carriage, while Lady Lyre, in their opinion, had no manners at all. The boy approached his sister about the destination of his trip. Oleg asked if he had heard of the Duchy of Janat. Mikkel was surprised. Was this the Duke who ruled the sea? Were they really going to see his domain? Heiress patted her brother on the head and confirmed that they would see both the sea and Duke Janat, as this would be important to him as the son of the head of the house that owned the coastal lands. The girl understood that her younger brother adored the sea, and she had read about his passion for this natural element. The young lady realized that fate had brought her to this moment, and she would never have thought that events would turn out exactly this way. Mikkel was born with great magical potential, but before he could manifest it, a tragedy occurred. Count Lyre and his wife fell into eternal sleep after a tragic incident, and their property was divided among relatives, whom the children did not even know by sight. The entire inheritance was literally torn to pieces and appropriated by those who had no right to it. Hearing Mikkel's desire to see the sea, Heiress collected the remaining funds to go to the coast and fulfill her brother's dream. But pickpockets stole the last money intended for the carriage, and the heroes ended up on the cold shore, freezing before the next test. The girl understood that if the events repeated themselves, she too would face a terrible plunge into eternal sleep, like the heroine of the book. But she was determined not to allow this to happen, and would choose for herself how to manage her destiny and her situation. The young man asked if Duke Janat had invited them to see his domain. Heiress noticed that her brother had mastered the rules of etiquette perfectly and replied that there was no official invitation. However, she assured them that everything would be fine, since they were not heading straight to the Duke's castle. Mikkel asked if this was true, and the girl remembered that Duke Kael von Yanath was known as the Duke of the Sea, a mysterious and influential nobleman. His true nature is hidden behind a mask, and at this time he is probably being forced into marriage with the Empress. But 12-year-old Mikkel does not listen to other people's instructions and does not trust people. He values freedom and his own peace above all else. He happily agreed to accept his sister's offer, and at that moment, looking at the sea, he said that he finally saw it in all its glory. The girl understands that her proposal concerns the Duke's secret, and he will not be able to refuse despite all his principles. It is December 1991 according to the imperial calendar, and exactly 1 month has passed since Duke Jeneth's parents entered into eternal sleep. The young lady is sure that the boy is now standing by the sea, the very one that preserves the memory of his parents. And indeed, her guess is correct. Arsel sees that he is standing among the waves, and she herself thinks that he knew that she was watching. After this, the girl realizes she needs to calm down, and her brother asks if everything is okay. She answers affirmatively and warns Mikkel to be careful, as the water there is quite deep. At this point, a man approaches the young lady and asks who she is, claiming that the beach belongs to him. He adds that he doesn't recall inviting the girl here. Arsel understands the situation, demands respect, and greets His Highness, Duke Jeneth. The guy clarifies that it wasn't about the beach at all. The purpose of the meeting was himself. The girl introduces herself as Arsel de Leer from County Lyre. Her younger brother, Mikkel de Leer, stands next to her. He watches them silently, showing no emotion. Then he calls the servant back and asks why the Count's daughter decided to meet him secretly. The young lady claims to have come to make a deal, offering the Duke a nearby island that is part of the County of Lyre. She hints that a man might be interested in a loveless marriage, and he is interested in her words. The girl explains to him the peculiarities of the holdings of the County of Lyre, and mentions that she recently received an inheritance. The Duke bows, offering his condolences, and she does the same. Arsel received her inheritance a few days ago, and Janot a month ago. During this period, Duke Janot began to experience difficulties due to marriage proposals from relatives on his mother's side. They tried to gain access to his maritime possessions and influence his decisions. There were also those who directly tried to seduce the young Duke, as well as to maintain control of the sea in their hands. The girl notices that Janot is looking for a bride who could be married on terms that would be favorable to him, and this does not concern his previous marriage. Finding a suitable bride is difficult, as she must understand the Duke and keep his secrets. She wonders if this could be considered a flaw. Arsel knows that the coastal waters of County Lyre are of utmost importance to him. She also understands that the Duke's house of Jeneth is known as a pirate haven. The family's income from piracy is many times greater than the legal income, and the main activity is actually related to piracy. There are rumors of a ship full of jewels, although such cases are rare. Sometimes the Count's family's waters blocked the ship's passage, which led to serious losses for the Duke. The eastern coast is guarded by guards during the day and by pirates at night. The domain of House Lyre is extremely attractive to the young man. The girl realizes that whoever reveals the Duke's secret risks their life, so she states her intention to make a deal and be careful. With a trembling hand, she says that she is ready to hand over the waters of County Lyre to the Duke if he agrees to marry her. After a pause, he remains silent, and she claims that she does not feel love for him. Like him, she doesn't love him. All that matters to her is protecting her brother until he graduates from the academy. Until that moment, they will maintain their marriage, Arsel assures. Even after the divorce, the water area may remain in his hands. The man notes that he is aware of the county's situation. The family's financial situation is stable enough to provide for education at the academy, she confirms. Kale asks why they came to him. The girl notices the greedy glances of those around her. She needs to protect her younger brother and give him a chance to become a full-fledged wizard, so that he does not fall into eternal sleep. The Duke needs control of the sea, and she and her brother need a shield for protection, making the deal perfect. Arsel considers a loveless marriage the ideal solution for both parties. She realizes that her conditions are not strong enough to establish herself as mistress of the ducal house. But it doesn't matter to her whether he becomes a spouse or a guardian. The content of the contract will remain unchanged. The girl promises not to violate the terms of the marriage contract. The man agrees, and Arsel is surprised that everything was decided so quickly. Kale claims that the appetizing offer has caught his attention, and he will not let it pass him by. He adds that all the details will be discussed later, after which they say goodbye. The main character takes her brother by the hand, offering to go with her, but the young man admits that he is afraid of this man. The girl feels that their meeting is not accidental, and decides that now they just need to stick together and be patient, not even understanding whether the person in front of her is an enemy or a friend. Afterwards, she wonders if they can handle what's happening, and notices that her brother looks surprised, trying to understand what happened. The boy merely notes the disappearance of their carriage, and the main character, surprised, asks what he's talking about. He, in turn, wonders how they can return if there's no way back. The girl thinks that everything is unfolding as, in the book, but then she takes money out of her pocket and realizes that reality is different from history. She suggests looking for another carriage, realizing that, unlike the plot, she has enough money for the fare, and, reading the novella, she is prepared for anything that might happen. At this time, the young man asks about the strange sound of hooves, and the main character hugs him, covering him with her body to protect him from possible danger. She thinks that the carriage is heading straight for them, and that they might get hit, but the carriage suddenly stops right in front of them. A maid comes out of the carriage and asks if the girl is Arcel de Liar, introducing herself as Rosetta, the head maid of Duke Janot's household. She reports that His Highness has taken care of them, and the protagonist thanks her for her concern. The girl is shocked to realize that they are not going home, but to Janot's house, and asks the maid if they are going the right way. The maid asks the mistress to go inside and says that Arcel will go straight to the guest room, carefully asking if she is too tired after the journey. The young lady replies that she feels fine, and together they head to the guest room. The guy in the guest room is glad to see them so soon, and the girl notices that after meeting on the beach, he looks completely different, dressed with special attention to himself. She thanks him for sending the carriage, although she expected that they would be taken to the Liar estate, and is surprised by the young man's concern. He reminds her that they are going to get married, so there is no point in going to the Liar estate, and the girl thinks about the rumors that might spread about her stay in Janot's house. The guy asks what the problem is, because becoming his bride is an honor, and can rumors change her decision? The main character is silent for a moment, considering his words, realizing that obscene rumors are not capable of changing her choice. The young man notes that she learned his secret, but was surprised only by a minor remark. Arcel understands that the book and reality are very different. He continues, imagining how she would react if she found out that he was ordering that anyone who spread rumors be punished harshly and decisively. Kale raises her hand, asking if it is not for the sake of the Jennett family's strength that she is getting married. He adds that this will give you the opportunity to protect yourself from those who behave rudely, and rumors do not matter. After all, nothing can harm the future bride of Duke Janot, and the girl remembers that before she ended up in the book, she had an older sister. After losing her parents early, she left university for her sister and took a job to support her. The sister, who matured too early, sacrificed herself for others and passed away, leaving young Arcel alone. The girl wonders if her older sister felt the same at her parents' funeral, remembering her care. She remembers hugging her brother and vowing to protect him from any danger. The boy, in turn, vowed to protect his sister from enemies, showing that they would always support each other. The rest of the aristocrats watched them, and the young man responded with a menacing look, realizing that there were only enemies around, except for his sister. A week had passed since they had stayed at the Janot family's country house, and they had received an unexpected visitor. The young lady admires the luxurious carriage, wondering who it belongs to, as local aristocrats rarely maintain ties with the Janot family. The boy turns to his sister, asking what is going on, and the girl explains that a guest has arrived, offering to take a look at him together. Mikkel wonders who it is, and whether he is dangerous, and whether he should do anything to protect himself. The main character is shocked, and thinks that he is still too young to talk about such things so decisively. She reflects that being too smart can sometimes be a problem, as there are things and people that can lead to failure when encountered. The young lady notices that the guest does not look like a nobleman, and begins to wonder who he really is. At this time, the head maid turns to Madame Arcel de Liar, informing her that the Duke has suddenly disappeared. He ordered Mr. Mikkel de Liar to come with her. The protagonist wonders if Mikkel really needs to be there. She comes to the conclusion that the Duke is unlikely to discuss anything with Mikkel except matters related to the academy. After this, the girl heads to the meeting place, where the young man claims that since the situation is developing so charmingly, his fiancé's brother is planning to enter the academy, and she must be at least as high as Tamila Academy to meet the requirements. The protagonist clarifies whether this is really the Tamila Academy and realizes that it is a place where only the most worthy nobles are accepted and where talents are developed even in those who have none. Furthermore, the academy is renowned for its magical training program, and it is said that mages who graduate from Tamiya can make a name for themselves in the empire. The girl, thinking about Michelle, feels a growing desire but replies that no, and that it's okay if the training takes place elsewhere. The man asks if she doesn't like Tamiya, and the blonde replies that the academy is definitely the best of all possible. However, given the communication costs required to enroll Mikkel this semester, as well as tuition, it will be too expensive for Janot, but the man asks if this means the girl does not want to be indebted to him. The young lady confirms this, after which the brunette smiles and asks if she has heard rumors about the events surrounding the academy. The main character wonders what kind of rumors these are, about a cruel robber or a sea devil, because there are too many such stories. Kale claims that the girl is obliged to accept his offer because he does not do anything at a loss to himself. He informs his dear bride that the contract has already entered into force, and the girl understands that it has finally been decided. Mikkel will enter the Tamila Academy. At this time, a man arrives who introduces himself as Damien, the director of the Tamila Academy, and expresses the honor of meeting her. The young lady wonders if things are moving too fast and reveals that she is Arsel de Liar. And Mikkel de Liar is her younger brother, who will be entering the academy. The man nods, confirming his words. He then suggests going inside, and the girl enters the room where she sees her husband. She realizes that the arrogant director of the academy has appeared before her and wonders how he achieved this. The girl notes that now the guy looks impeccable and elegant, but among the raging waves he is cruel to his enemies. He drowns many people in the sea, so she needs to stay on her guard, or she will be completely vulnerable. The director approaches the girl and asks if Mikkel is going to enroll in the academy. The main character understands that his words formally impose obligations and confirms that they do. She wonders if he must have been told something special to be so eager to show friendliness. Something that usually takes months. The girl turns to Mikkel, but the boy remains silent, showing no emotion. Kale looks at him with a slight smirk, and the young lady is shocked and tries to understand what is happening between them. The director turns to Arsel again, and she confirms that it is Mikkel. He enters the Faculty of Magic, and the man replies that it is wonderful, while the young man asks his sister if he will become a magician. The girl recalls that the novel described this young man as a general mage who is born once every 1,000 years on the continent. If he becomes a magician, he will be able to find his calling and live happily, rather than freeze in the unknown. But if he doesn't like it, she won't force him and says that he can choose another faculty. The boy firmly declares that since we are talking about magicians, he will become one, which is expected for her sweet little brother. The director announces that, starting this semester, Mikkel de Liar has been accepted as a first-year student in the magic department at Tamila Academy. He hands over the application for admission and explains that after signing the document, Mikkel will go straight to the academy. The director also informs that after enrollment, the young man will not be able to meet with strangers, except for certain periods of time. Naturally, returning to the mansion will also be restricted, and Mikkel decides that he will not go then. The main character is slightly surprised and asks what they are talking about, but the boy remains silent again. The Duke notes that the child does not realize the price his sister paid for his admission. He also believes that his younger brother is too naive, and that all his sister's efforts may be in vain. The main character wonders what these comments are and why he says that to his brother. The man notices that the young man's gaze had previously seemed stern, but in reality it was merely the gaze of an impudent puppy. After which he takes the pen and assures that everything is fine, even if the boy wants to miss the chance and stay with the puppy. Isn't the vastness of the ducal lands enough to raise such a wayward and stubborn little dog that knows no bounds? After these words, the young man takes a pen in his hand, and the director asks whether he has made a final decision about admission. The boy simply signs the application, and the main character wonders if everything is really resolved. the man clarifies that all that remains now is for the guardian to sign. The girl takes the pie in her hands, and the director apologizes for the indiscreet question, as if trying to soften the moment. He shows curiosity about the relationship between His Highness the Duke and the new student, trying to understand the intricacies of their connection. The man asks if she really wants to know the details, then stands up from his seat, demonstrating determination. His hand lightly touches the girl's hand, after which he carefully crosses out her old surname and writes his own, as if cementing a new life. He adds, so that she will remember the changes, noting that this young man is his wife's brother, emphasizing the family ties. After some time, the girl sees the young man off and says that if he doesn't want to go, he can stay without feeling any pressure. However, the boy firmly declares that he will go and intends to become stronger for his sister, realizing that this is his path to responsibility. After all, they were left alone among enemies, and he promised to return stronger. With these words, he departs, leaving behind a gentle breeze of change. The main character realizes that everything is over, and since Mikkel went to the academy, the Duke will no longer be able to harm her brother, even if she breaks ties with him. The man at this point turns to the young lady and remarks that it looks like her younger brother has left safely, leaving a feeling of calm. Now it's their turn. Arcel asks if he's going to the island, and the man asks a clarifying question, showing attention to detail. Does she really know about him? The protagonist realizes that the real kingdom of Jeannotte is a base from which their house conducts its pirate activities, and the mansion where the Duke is staying is just for show. However, the girl asks to postpone the trip to the island for a bit, and the man asks what she's talking about. She explains that while she'll be gone for a while, she needs to take care of some family matters first. The island is a place where visits from outsiders are unwelcome, so it will be difficult for her to sort out family affairs unless she prepares in advance. To resolve her affairs, she needs to borrow one of Jeannotte's knights. The man asks if she hadn't mentioned this before. She replies that she does not want to remain in debt and does not believe that she owes anything in return, firmly asserting her opinion. The girl also wonders if this isn't an opportunity for House Jeannotte to check on the Liar family. She realizes that all the Liar servants are currently spies sent by other families. A loyal knight will arrive soon, and until he does, she will have Jeannotte's support. Although Liar Pavel's house appeared earlier in the novel, it won't come to that now. The girl notes that they will discuss the details at home. A little later, someone approaches His Highness with a question about his intentions. It's a knight named Elaha, who wants to know if he's serious about marrying Lady Liar. The man replies that the terms have already been agreed upon, and invites the knight to go help the Liar household. The boy screams, begging the gentleman to change his decision as if he feels the threat of future events. The brunette states that if the knight is concerned about the secrets of naval affairs, then he should stop interfering, demonstrating power and confidence. The young man wonders if this is inevitable, since after the wedding they will become strangers, and their secrets will become known to outsiders. The man warns the knight that if he opens his mouth again, he will send him to the bottom of the sea, so it is better to remain silent and accept reality. He asks the young man if he thinks he can lose a battle on his own territory, as if testing his resolve. The man also wonders why the young man began to argue, since he knows a secret that is dangerous to reveal. He understands that the girl is aware of all the pirate machinations, and since she knows everything, she must understand the risks. At this time, the main character enters the office, observing what is happening and preparing for action. She approaches the table and asks Sir Ella if he has ever dealt with estate matters, testing his experience and preparedness. The guy doesn't know what to answer at first, but then turns around and claims that he is a knight, not a butler, demonstrating honesty. The girl understands that he is one of those who cannot lie, which inspires trust and respect in him. The young lady notes that everything is fine and knows that there are people who are allowed to handle the internal affairs of the Duchy of Jeannotte, and judging by His Highness's trust, this guy is probably one of them. After this, the girl asks if this is really true, and the young man confirms that he was involved in these events for some time. Then she asks him for a little help, and the guy is amazed at how she got so much information, since it's not easy to find out about such things. The girl explains that, since she'll be away soon, she wants to settle all the affairs of the Liar household in advance. To prevent any unrest among the servants, she asks him to check whether her decisions are wrong so that everything is in order. The girl realizes that before her reincarnation, she was a simple schoolgirl and remembers some of the knowledge that Count Lyre and his wife taught her. But no matter how hard she tries, mistakes are inevitable, and these people are just waiting for an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. That's why the girl now points to the document and says that special attention should be paid to public safety in this area. After all, it's highly likely that the Knights of House Lyre were bribed by a third party, but they must be treated kindly. The young man asks if other families have indeed bribed the knights of her house and are using them for their own purposes. The girl confirms that this is true, and that is why they are no longer considered Knights of House Lyre, which means they will have to work hard to ensure the security of their domain. She then holds out a map and notes that all the noble families in the area, especially blood relatives, have their eye on the lands of House Lyre. For them, it's like a tasty piece of pie. You have to cut it before you can eat it, and it's impossible to refuse such a sweet treat. The bribed knights and servants now conscientiously perform their duties, following the orders of the real master. But the girl wonders if she can't use this pie they prepared herself. The knight sighs, realizing that the girl doesn't mind him being informed about the internal affairs of the Lyre house. However, when he reaches for the package, she suddenly stops, reminding him that she and His Highness the Duke are, albeit temporary, allies. He is a knight she trusts, and she hopes for a successful cooperation. Allah agrees, and the young lady thanks him, asking if there is one more thing she could ask for his help with. After some time, the knight is already heading off on his business, but remembers the words of his master, who was interested in why he suddenly started to object, and also thought about the young lady, who stated that she would trust for the sake of cooperation, and the guy realizes that he is being pressured, but he cannot object. Soon the girl is already heading out with her husband. The guy looks out the window, remembering how she said that she needed Knight Janet for business, and they would discuss the details at home. He wonders what she would do if he refused because of the proposed conditions. The young lady replies that in that case, she would have turned to someone else. Kale finds this a bit strange, but he doesn't like this option and thinks about it further. He notes that people from the mainland rarely come to the island, and the girl confirms that she knows. This is the secret territory of Janat. The man adds that she is indeed aware of Janat, and asks if she knows about the rough sea in front of the island. The young lady admits that she didn't know this, and the boy explains that all strangers who end up on the island become its inhabitants. In other words, they will no longer be able to leave these lands. Soon the girl boards a boat, and then a ship. But, seeing the beautiful sea, she admires it, feeling the light breeze caressing her face. Before her rebirth, she had never had the opportunity to ride a boat, but now she sees the vastness of the sea. However, the ship suddenly tilts and the girl almost falls. Kale instantly catches her and warns her to be careful, asking with a smile, "Is this the first time she has sailed so far?" The girl replies that it is the first time, but she thinks that it is not important now. She also notices that the buttons on his shirt are slightly undone, which makes her uncomfortable. The guy asks if she's feeling unwell, and she quickly replies that everything is fine. It's just that her eyes don't know where to look because of all the new things around her. Kale notes that it is obvious. The girl is rarely on the ship, and the local sailors also rarely meet people from the continent. One of them claims that the sea is calm today, the other agrees that it is indeed quiet today. The main character is surprised. The islanders do not allow strangers, and she wonders whether this can be called peaceful. The young man notes that she is well informed about the island and is interested. Will she be able to answer how she knows so much about Janat? To which the young lady smiles and refuses to reveal her sources. She understands that even if she tells him, he won't believe her and might just put her to bed, even though he promised to marry her. The young man admits that he cannot contain his curiosity and decides to find out everything himself. He approaches the young lady, declaring that he intends to find out how she learned the secrets of his lands. The protagonist closes her eyes, embarrassed, and allows the man to act as he sees fit. She also realizes that there are people on this island who can extract any information they want. These people aren't afraid to get their hands dirty or even lose their freedom to gather the necessary information. If it helps them learn all the details about Arcel de Liar, they'll do it without hesitation. although it is clear that they will not be able to find out that she simply moved into another body. After this, the girl turns to her husband, deciding to change the subject of conversation so as not to delve into uncomfortable details. She also mentions that she heard that pirates usually don't tolerate women on ship. The main character notices one of the pirates, but he only moves away, as if trying to avoid her gaze, and thinks that it is better not to attract attention to himself. The man sighs and explains that there used to be a belief that a ghost would stick to a ship whenever a woman stepped on it. But no one believes that anymore. He adds that his mother cut off about 20 heads of those who were superstitious and threw their bodies into the sea, showing that the fears were groundless. So he assures the young lady there's no need to worry. If anyone tries to spread such nonsense, they'll be thrown overboard. The girl is amazed at the beaming smile with which he says such horrifying things. Suddenly, the heroine remembers that the Duke's parents could not manage the family business because of their softness and spinelessness. At that moment, the ship hits a wave, and the girl loses her balance again, almost falling. The guy immediately grabs her, apologizing, and claims that holding on to him is much safer than the railing. He adds that he is glad that she does not resist, and the girl wonders what exactly he means. She looks up at the sky and notices that a thunderstorm is starting above them, and something strange and scary appears ahead. The girl, horrified, realizes it's a monster. But before she can even utter the thought, one of the pirates instantly lunges at him. Armed with a huge weapon, he pierces the monster's eye, then cuts the rope and returns to the ship. Kale claims the danger has passed. Heroina pulls back slightly and thanks him, but the man merely says no thanks are needed. He also asks if she's surprised that such a short man's hands touched her. She admits she is surprised, and wonders how the Duke of an entire country can speak of himself in such a way. The man thinks he looks more like a butcher than an aristocrat. He explains that for him it's just a meat grinder, and he feels nothing when looking at this mess. The girl agrees with this observation. At that moment, she almost fell into eternal sleep and decided to no longer trust her life to strangers. Kale explains that the mainlanders consider pirates rude and low, and wonders if the young lady has decided to deal with them. The girl clutches her dress and replies, "Why not?" The man falls silent for a moment. He then turns to Chris, asking what's going on, and the captain says he has someone he wants to introduce. Chris comes up to ask if he was called and explains that he is the chief assistant. Kale asks the young lady if she should introduce herself, and the girl says her name, Arcel de Liar, in the future Arcel von Janot. One of the boys is shocked, unable to believe his ears, and screams. The chief mate notices that he too is shocked by what the captain has just said. The young man claims to have brought a stranger and cannot understand whether the captain intends to bury her at sea. The heroine thinks about his words and replies that even if this happens, rumors about the disappearance of the next head of the Liar House will spread across the continent. The young lady is perplexed as to how he could think that the Duke would bury his own bride at sea. The young man cries out, admitting his mistake and believing that he deserves punishment for his words. He turns to Arcel and wants to understand how she learned about the secrets of his lands. At this time, Kale declares that his bride has already said everything for him, and the moneylender and captain's mate shows curiosity about seawater and wants to taste it. This is what happens, but the young man soon admits he was mistaken and acted too rudely. He also realizes he hasn't yet introduced himself and introduces himself. He calls himself the second mate and deputy commander of the Janot Night Squad, and his name is Li Ji-an. The main character silently watches the young man, and he explains that almost no one on the mainland knows about the existence of the island of Janot. Only the most devoted servants and family members know about him, and now, he claims, the girl has also become part of the Janot family. This means she's now connected to the sea. The main character just smiles and admits that this isn't a bad thing at all. The girl then approaches the ship's railing and notices that the current near the island is much stronger than she expected. A young man approaches her and tells her that this current leads to Anna, the homeland of monsters. The protagonist quietly thinks, so that's how it is. She realizes that she almost became prey for the monsters and decides to be more careful, but at that moment, one of the ship's crew members suddenly appears right in front of her. The heroine is surprised, while simultaneously wondering what might have happened if he had fallen. The young man asks if she was surprised by this trick, and adds that Even more shocking events await her ahead. The girl is a little confused and anxiously asks if they are talking about monsters again. At this time, the rest of the knights join them, and one of them asks the captain if he is going to drop anchor. At this moment, one of the maids goes to Lady Shiat and announces her arrival. She claims His Highness's ship has docked. The woman asks why the maid is so fussed, and she merely confirms that the authorities have arrived. Shiata asks if it is a sea guest, and the girl replies that no, while simultaneously thinking how to explain it, and claims that she is not a sea guest. After all, she's the Duke's future bride. The woman asks what they're talking about, and the girl confirms that she is indeed His Highness's fiancée and the mistress of the castle. The girl claims that this bride is her future mistress of the castle, and also part of the Duke's family. Shiata believes the chief would never have chosen a girl from the mainland, jokingly adding that the next Lila could be tied to the bow of a ship. The girl, for her part, insists she's serious. A little later, all the maids are already welcoming the owner back. The head maid asks if the flight went smoothly. Looking around, she notices a young lady and realizes she's the girl from the mainland. The woman greets her, calling her a guest from the sea, and adds that the island will take care of her. The man asks that the young lady not be considered a sea guest, because soon she will become the mistress of the castle. Shiata laughs at this and wonders if it's possible that the girl really is from the mainland. She agrees to obey the order, but wonders what to do with the sea guest, who is already there. The man replies that she should be left alone and act according to the normal rules, because this is an order. He then turns to the young lady, asking if she'd like something to eat first. A servant stands nearby with papers for Kale to sort through. The man says he'll be back later. The girl agrees, and then the guy orders him to take her to the dining room, to which the head maid immediately agrees. The main character also looks down the stairs and sees one of the rooms there where the maid brings food. There's also a man sitting there with a desperate expression on his face. A little while later, the maid approaches the girl and insists that she can be called Shiata there. The main character replies that, for now, the woman can call her Arsel. And the head maid agrees with Mistress Arsel. He also asks her to wait a little, as the food will be brought soon. But at this moment, the maids also peek into the room, and one of them asks if she's okay with fish. The main character wants to say, "Oh, come on!" Then the other maid exclaims, "What kind of fish are you talking about? A guest from the mainland has arrived." The girl says fish, because she obviously prefers meat. The maid then says that the fish is delicious, but her colleague asks if her brains have really become salty from the seawater, and after all, the mistress has swum across a sea full of fish, and now she is offering her the hated fish as a dish. The main character claims that she will like everything, and the head maid at this time sighs heavily and tells the two to get out. The main character only laughs after this, and the maid says that as the mistress sees, they still have not been trained in noble etiquette, and if she is uncomfortable, she will send them elsewhere. The young lady then just smiles and replies that everything is fine, and in any case. But then she notices that the decor and moldings are out of fashion, and it is also immediately obvious that the owner has not been there for a long time, and she thinks that she will manage everything there as the owner for some time. After all, this will be a wonderful experience before she later becomes the full-fledged mistress of the Lyre House, and the young lady insists that she'll be on the island for a long time, so she should get used to it. The woman then realizes that she thought this girl would be an ordinary sissy aristocrat, but now she says that, and asks the lady not to be shy and also to speak up if something is wrong. The main character then says that it's a kickback, and the woman suggests that she let her know if she needs anything. Their girlfriend says that tomorrow she wants to take a little look around the residence. Well, the woman agrees and says she'll bring her a map of the residence tomorrow. She also claims that since the captain has been away for so long, he has a lot of work to do. And the main character says that since he is busy, they will see him tomorrow, but she herself understands that if she thinks about it. By this time, the sea guest's meal should have already ended, as should the conversation between the Duke and Shiata. It seemed a little strange to her, so she wonders who they call a sea guest. At this moment, someone enters the room and apologizes for the wait. It turns out to be the Duke. He asks if the girl would like to spend some time with him. Afterwards, desserts are brought into the room, and the man asks what her plans are after dinner, and the girl replies that she doesn't even know, and the guy says that perhaps she's just tired from the long voyage on the ship. Arsel claims that she is tired, but he shouldn't worry, because it's not going to wander around just anywhere. And despite the fact that she knows Janat's most important secret, he may have other secrets that she shouldn't know, even if she starts digging from the first day she arrives at the castle. Who knows, maybe she too will become a sea guest. The Duke only smiles after this. He also asks if she knows about the sea guest. The young lady replies that she doesn't, realizing that the sea guest wasn't mentioned in the navel. However, the atmosphere in the dining room made everything clear anyway, so now she claims that she doesn't know the details, but it's unlikely that this guest will return home safely. The young lady understands that there is no point in calling a guest who has arrived on the island of Janat, because this island holds many secrets. The man then claims that his bride is much smarter than he thought, and there is a superstition that if you refuse a guest, then on the next voyage you will receive punishment, because when guests come, sometimes they treat them with hospitality, but only until midnight, and during the day, when the sea god is watching over them, they treat them as precious guests. And after midnight, they deal with the uninvited and they call such people sea people. But he also claims that it doesn't matter, and the girl can wander anywhere. After all, the local people are used to reading the currents, whether at sea or on land, so they won't bare their teeth in front of their future mistress. And if anyone dares, let her order them to throw him at Anna. The young lady also remembers. As the Duke said, this current leads to the homeland of monsters. And it is, after all, a swamp overflowing with monsters. The girl with shaking hands approaches her cake and realizes that it is the dark and rough current that washed her away, if she'd shown a moment of carelessness. But now, when she looks at the guy, she feels a little embarrassed. And she thinks why he looks at her like that, and also claims that everyone is similarly wary of people from the continent. The man simply pushes one of the desserts towards her and asks if this means she is not going to do anything. And the young lady is silent for a while and tells him to let him know immediately if the topic under discussion is unpleasant for him, even if their marriage is by contract. But she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. The man then insists that no matter what she does, it won't affect Janat. The young lady then feels a little insulted, and the man claims that he doesn't care if she decides to buy a huge castle on the mainland or build a new lyre mansion. After all, she can use a separate room as a dressing room, and he does not object to such small expenses, and also let her not be shy about going wherever she wants and taking whatever her heart desires. The man also claims that Janat will spare nothing for her. A short time later, the young lady wakes up in her room. The head maid tells the mistress that the morning is very fine, and the young lady wishes her good morning, and understands that after yesterday's conversation with the Duke, she could not sleep. The woman at this time claims that it is already early morning, so she has prepared a light snack. The main character asks what happened to yesterday's sea guest. The woman replies that they handed him over to the sea. The main character then eats a tomato and says, okay, that's it. She's also wondering what she can do while she's there. And she also thinks that, to begin with, she shouldn't make any luxurious purchases, because if she can't pay, she will become a sea guest, or be thrown into the sea. By marrying, the girl prevented the possibility of Lyre's lands being taken from her, and doesn't dare incur even more debt. Besides the waters, Lyre has another major advantage. And this geographical location is all about the Mezhievsky region, with its grain-producing district on one side and the sea on the other, and this can be used profitably if security is strengthened so that people can freely pass through their territories. First, she'll have to take charge of the knightly squadron, and Janat's knights have a lot to teach her in this regard. So the girl tells the maid that she wants to see the knightly squadron today, to which the woman agrees, saying she'll warn the boys on the parade ground. Well, then someone screams, turning to the mistress, and the maid asks what kind of behavior this is, since there are guests there, to which the girl apologizes but claims that this is an emergency. The woman then asks what happened, and the girl doesn't even know how to answer, after which she claims that the ship disguised as a merchant vessel collided with a group of monsters, and there is nothing on him for fighting, and all that remains is to fight hand-to-hand. Therefore, Mrs. Shiata, she must come to the rescue. The woman claims she left the deck a long time ago, and the main character then wonders what kind of people work in the castle, and whether they're the kind who would be willing to go on a ship as pirates in an emergency. Meanwhile, the girl insists that the knights control Anna's borders. So with no one else to guide her, the woman wonders why they're suddenly in southern waters, where the currents are particularly challenging. The main character then asks if the monsters are intelligent, and the maid replies that it's impossible, because they're stupid, and there's even a curse word on the island. More stupid than Lada. But the girl claims that if they're pursuing prey, they can chase it from the eastern waters all the way to the other end of the continent, and they're good at navigating the currents. After which, the young lady says fine, and they'll do so, and they draw something on the map. The maid then tells Mrs. Arsel that she's an excellent map maker, and the girl then claims that the ship, disguised as a merchant vessel, is somewhere there and the currents are going something like this. And that means the monsters need to be replaced in the Lyre waters, because strong westerly winds blow there so the current changes course. And when faced with the wind, the monsters will slow down, and they will use this moment to defeat them. The maid replies that it is possible, but asks if everything will really be okay. The main character replies that she cannot help but know such things about her own possessions, but if they doubt the success of her plan, then she'll go in person. The maid then, a little puzzled, says that's not necessary. After all, the girl is a guest from the mainland, and she can't even believe it. Then she asks if the mistress allows it, could she take the map with her? The main character replies, of course, and the main character tells Shiata not to worry, because she can look at the parade ground at any time. And now only she can help the ship, and the maid is a little surprised by this, and then bows. And he says that he will call other maids to take care of the mistress, after which he apologizes for leaving her. The main character only tells the woman to hurry up and when she leaves. Then Arsel waves to her, and the woman understands that although this girl is from the mainland, she understands the sea and knows Janat's secret. And besides, she is of noble birth, and now she says that everything is really so. And another maid turns to her and tells Mrs. Shiata to come quickly. The main character then leans against the window and wonders if everything will be okay, but if she was wrong, there will be big problems. But the girl then thinks that she is sure that everything will be fine, because before making a deal with Janat, she thoroughly studied the waters of Lyre. Well, now the girl is looking out the window and wondering if Kale von Janat is really there with Sir Elaha, and it looks like he finished his work in Lyre and has already returned. The man looks at the young lady at this time, and she wonders if he heard about Shiata leaving, but he must think that she is interfering too much. But after this, the guy just turns around, and the young lady thinks where he is going, because she is in that direction. Well, then someone comes into the room and greets the precious guest, and also states that Lady Shiata ordered her to be taken care of. The main character then says that they'll be quick, but then he thinks about what kind of atmosphere this is, after which he even sees traces of red liquid on the dress of one of the maids, and then her cold gaze makes you wonder what it is. The maid only smiles after that, and she claims that they were ordered to make sure that the guest did not get bored, so she asks if she would like to take a little walk along the shore. And the lady isn't used to the sea here yet. The main character insists that she'd like to take a look around the residence first. The woman asks if it wouldn't be better to go to the nearby meadow, as it's full of beautiful flowers that you won't see in the Han Empire. The girl then realizes they're trying to take her outside the fortress. But Janat Castle is located in the very center of the island, and nearby are vassal families who have been involved in the pirate business since the time of Kale's grandfather. And a month ago, when the boy received the title of Duke, all the families rebelled. Kale, with the exception of one, plunged into the eternal groan of traitors. The Van Riel family members were the only ones who didn't participate in the clause. The Duke left the loyal Van Riel in the east and sent the families of the remaining traitors to the south of the island, cutting off all ties. The girl also understands that she had not seen these girls on the island before, and furthermore, they appeared as soon as Shiata left, which means this is the work of the vassals. Well, the young lady then thinks that since we are talking about flowers, then I should agree, and the maid then, with smiles on their faces, says that they will take her there. And the girl claims that she wants to look at the flowers in the garden, and says that there are probably plenty of beautiful flowers there too. The maids then respond a little colder, saying, of course, after which the main character heads into the garden. The woman points to one of the flowers and claims it's called anorexia. The main character says how beautiful it is, but she's thinking that she doesn't even really know what the flower's name is. One of the maids claims that they want to show the lady the meadow before the sun sets and asks if she minds if they speed up a little. The main character replies that she likes the view of the fields at sunset and agrees, after which the woman tells the girl to follow her, and the young lady wonders what kind of family she is from. But she hid in broad daylight in the very heart of Janat's residence, but then the main character realizes that the time has come for them to meet. But then the Duke turns to the girl and asks what they are doing there. The young lady asks His Highness if he was also in the garden. But the maids told her that beautiful flowers bloom in the meadows nearby. The man then claims that it means they came to admire the flowers. He also approaches the young lady and asks if these girls were brought from the mainland without his knowledge. The maids are very frightened by this, and the Duke turns to his wife and says that she probably likes red flowers, and they say the mainland is full of them. The main character asks what he's talking about when the man claims she knows a lot about the island. He also asks if she knows how they dispose of garbage there. The young lady then thinks that they really are from a rebel family, and these girls must have wanted to use her to bully Kale von Janoth, and that's pretty stupid. After all, a man would never risk his life for the sake of a bride with whom he is bound by a contract marriage, and he now claims that he only recently cleaned up, but apparently forgot something else. And so he takes his sword out of its sheath and says what a pity it is, after which the young lady only hears desperate cries. The man then approaches her and claims that since the girl has kindly collected dust for him, then he'll be obliged to treat her. However, when the main character looks at this terrible picture, she only trembles. After which, the Duke asserts that she doesn't seem to like red flowers after all. He also covers her eyes with a handkerchief. After which he turns to one of the knights and tells him to fall there, and also tells the girl to close her eyes and he will help, and to avoid getting dirty in the pollen of red flowers. And the young people understand that in the future she will join hands with this man, for those very hands that can in an instant plunge someone into eternal sleep. But this is a bit odd. The man insists that it's all over now and that he doesn't really like red flowers either. And the girl thinks that when she touches this hand, she feels calmer. Once they're at the table, the man claims he saw Shiota rushing to help, and she said the girl helped her. But the young woman insists there was no way she could have delayed. The man then claims that Janoth's family has a wonderful bride and that she deserves to be well served. The young lady then says she was only a little frightened, but now everything is fine. After which the Duke claims that he is glad and has long since expelled the Testelli, but they are still there. The girl then realizes that she has already heard about them somewhere, but when she sees that the Duke has fallen silent, she is a little surprised and also realizes that this is a chance to start the conversation that they have postponed. So now she starts talking about marriage, and the man says he's listening, and the young lady thinks whether it seems to her that he is delaying his answer. After which he claims that the condition of their marriage was that Mikhail graduated from the academy, so it would be best to divorce immediately after her brother's graduation. However, the Duke claims that they have not yet discussed a wedding date, and she is already planning a divorce. The girl then realizes that this is indeed true, and insists that she had actually thought about this too. And the man claims he heard that the families of the Eastern Sea are eager to acquire the territory of Lyre. And the young lady replies that this is true, and the man says that in that case, their marriage should become known throughout the continent, including its eastern part, so that those targeting Lyre will tuck their tails between their legs and disappear. The girl replies that yes, but wonders whether it would be too disadvantageous for Janoth to first marry with pomp and then get divorced. Although with his face, remarriage will not be a problem, and the girl understands that no matter how much she looks, she is always amazed by his beauty. At this time, the man insists that preparations must be made so that everything goes quickly, but on a grand scale. And do this in 6 months at the most, because they will meet this deadline without any problems. The girl then replies that no, she doesn't think that this will happen within 6 months. And the man then asks if she is missing something in Janoth, and the girl replies that she says this as Lyre's successor, and she will become a full-fledged head when she turns 20 years old, and only then will she have full power over the Promised Water area. The man tells the young lady not to worry about it, because the people who targeted the sea possessions of the Lyre house will gradually disappear. And besides, as far as he knows, the late Count Lyre's younger brother is still alive. The girl replies that this is true, and understands that they never saw him before the funeral, and that he was the first to covet the title of head of the house. And if it weren't for her, he would have had priority for the title, not little Mikhail. The Duke argues that it's better to announce the wedding early, to show that wolves can lose their own heads, and that for the duration of the marriage, his name is hers. The young lady understands that this is definitely the best choice, but the devil never does anything at a loss, so she must stand on her own without relying on anyone. You must become a wall that Mikkel can lean on. And now the young lady claims that she does not want to hear that House Janat gave protection to House Lyre, and she herself will take revenge on behalf of Lyre. Therefore, the girl proposes to get married when she turns 20, because she will not be able to refuse the marriage anyway, since Mikkel has already entered the academy. And she will remain on the island before and after the wedding. The man then says she can do as she wishes, but at this time someone turns to His Highness and claims that she brought what he asked for. After which the Duke tells the woman to come in. And the main character, seeing this, is a little surprised, because it is a bouquet of flowers, and it is being handed to a young lady. The girl asks if these are flowers and realizes that this was her request to Sir Ella before sending him to the domain of Lyre. The girl then asked if she could ask for something, and when the guy agreed, the young lady said that after he was completely finished, he picked some blue Sylvecchia flowers from the garden at the Lyre estate and brought them to her. The man then asked if she was talking about blue flowers. The young lady realized that Sylvecchia flowers are generally known for their silvery color. However, at the Lyre estate, under the influence of Mikkel's powerful magic, they turned blue. These flowers would become proof that Sir Elaha really was at the Lyre estate. But now the young lady asks why the Duke has them. The man replies, yes indeed, and he thinks how to tell him about this, because at first he asked in shock why the hell he prepared a bouquet for Lady Lyre, and then he took it from his hands and said that he would give it to him himself. But now he claims with a smile on his face that Allah is busy with knightly affairs and asked him to convey them. The guy then simply insisted to His Highness that it was a misunderstanding. But the main character says that's how it is. After which he thanks the man for passing them on to him, and he says that you're welcome. After which he asks if the young lady likes blue flowers. And it is not necessary to ask her to bring them from the mainland, because Janat's garden is full of beautiful flowers, and she's seen more than just red flowers there before. The girl replies that she simply likes the Sylvecchia flowers from the Lyre estate. The Duke is silent for a while after this, but the maid insists that there is one more parcel for the lady. The Duke then asks what it is, and the young lady asks if this is a letter from Mikkel. The girl claims that he must be busy adapting or he sent the letter anyway. The young lady also asks His Highness to forgive her, but claims that she will return to the room first to read the letter, and the man at this time thinks that he sees such an expression on her face for the first time, after which he says that of course she can. And the young lady immediately thanks him and runs away, leaving the man alone. Then he turns to the maid and tells her to leave too and agrees to something. Then the man is left alone and recalls how the young lady was proposed to. When she turned 20, she also claimed that she would stay on the island. Now the man just smiles, but then looks at the empty space in front of him, and he throws his head back in his chair. He says that when Mikkel de Leer graduates from Tamiya Academy, they will divorce. This academy has very strict graduation criteria, so there is plenty of time before the divorce. But since we're talking about this guy, maybe it wasn't worth sending him to the academy. But then the girl went to another family without hesitation. Now the man only sighs. And he also wonders why his head hurts so much. Well, in any case, when he gets his hands on Lyre's waters, the contract will be completed. And if the waters of House Lyre are in his hands like an eyesore, then no one will be able to resist House Janat. Then the man takes the bell lessons and uses it to command the main servant. The woman then enters the room and asks if His Highness called him. The man understands that the mission of House Janat is to hunt down monsters throughout the Eastern Sea, and now he's wondering if there's any news of the ship from the South Sea. The young man is also thinking about how hard it all is. And the main character at this time is reading the sheet where Mikkel wrote how his sister is doing. And after all, this is the first time he is sending her a letter, so he is wondering if it will definitely get there. The main character thinks how cute he is, after which she continues reading the sheet, which says that, just like the girl said, he entered the Faculty of Magic. He didn't know he could use magic, so he asks if sister guessed. Our soul thinks she knew for sure he'd succeed. The young man claims that when he becomes an excellent magician, he will be able to help her in everything, and also claims that the envelope contains a flower that he made with the help of magic, and such a flower will never wither. The guy also wrote that he made it because flowers don't grow well in the maritime climate, and when he remembers that they are surrounded only by enemies, he wants to be by her side as soon as possible to protect her. but he won't give up and will finish his training. The girl then sits down with a piece of paper and begins writing a note to her brother. In it, she writes that she misses him. And the knights at this time finally come out on dry land and cry out that they are alive, and also rejoice that they are on land. Their colleagues also tell the maids to prepare food and water. One of the men cries out that he thought he'd never feel solid ground again. The maid then tells one of the pirates that he looks better than she thought, and the young man asks what she's talking about, since he almost became food for the monster. But thanks to this, they managed to lure out the stupid Lotta, and he wonders if it's true that the plan was invented by the guest who came to the mansion. The girl replies that she even drew the map herself, and a little while later, they're already at the table. One of the men then asks how a person from the mainland knows so well how to draw sea charts, and the other asks if she is really from the mainland. His colleague then claims that he thought that the idea that the hostess would be a young lady from the mainland was simply a fantasy. And although they call her a person from the mainland, she knows the sea well, and that's another story. Well, then they all shut up, and then ask if they can now openly pirate. At this time, some man comes to the villa of Janet's house, and the maid claims that His Highness is currently away, and if he is on the same issue as last time. However, after this, the man only screams and claims that he is obliged to see His Highness, so let the woman contact him again. Meanwhile, the young lady's brother is rushing through the academy. He bumps into someone but immediately apologizes while running, and then runs to his room. He also takes out a knife and opens the letter. It turns out to be a letter from his sister. And the girl writes there that she is glad that he got to the academy safely, and she also received his flower, and she couldn't do it herself, but from the flowers that bloomed on the island, she chose the ones that most resembled him, and made a pressed applique out of them. And she hopes the boy will like it. The young man then looks sadly at the flowers and remembers his sister. He also says that he cannot use such a thing as a bookmark, and would rather attach it to the truth. The girl also asks if he had a fight with anyone there, and the guy claims that he can almost hear her voice. The young lady also indicated in the letter that he should remember that if things get really tough for him, he can always come back, because the most important thing for her is that he is happy. The young man then says that even if it gets hard, he won't leave. He's also worried about what he had to leave his sister alone with that man, and he also remembers how the Duke said that he did not understand what price his sister paid for admission. So now he understands that he has to graduate and reads the last line, which says that later she will write to the guy and misses him. The young man also understands that if he thinks about it, he will be able to receive letters from his sister more often than once a month. It also says that the girl will get married after she turns 20, and she is wondering when he will be able to come. The Duke is at the table at this time and asks what this maid is talking about, and whether she is talking about the Marquis of Bia's eldest son. The woman answers His Highness that yes, and he repeats again and again that he wants to buy more. He says he wants to get more and is ready to double or even triple the amount. The man then says that's how it is, and the young lady wonders if they are talking about the spice ali. This is a first-class commodity, which around this time increased the official income of the Duke of Janat several times. And this fragrant substance from the western part of the continent won the hearts of the aristocrats of the eastern part. But in reality, it's the reason for the spice's true value. However, the man at this time claims that he has no idea why he is begging like this. But it seems that people from the mainland like the smoky taste, although he wouldn't understand it. The man also thinks that there are a lot of fish dishes there, and fortunately, the girl seems to like everything. And now he asks if his fiancé wants to try the young lady. She replies that, of course. The man says that since she wants it, let the maid bring it. However, the woman then asks, what about Nilamad Bia? And the man tells the woman to send him back. There's no reason to undermine the trust of other families for a small profit. A little while later, the main character is already in her office and drinking tea. The girl understands that Kale doesn't know yet, but there is a reason why the nobles from the east are so diligently searching for this spice. After all, this fragrant substance contains magical power, and it attracts many people. That's why they literally go crazy over the spice. And eventually there were people who monopolized the flavor additive by raising the price several times. These were the magicians from the Magic Tower, located in the center of the continent, although the connection between magical power and the spice was not discovered, but later this connection would be accidentally discovered by her Uncle Par, and he will receive a huge profit from this. And when the girl remembers this, what the Viscount did to the Lyre House in the novella, he cannot turn a blind eye to. The girl also understands that, to begin with, she will simply ruin the deal with him. At this point, the maid approaches the young lady, and he asks if he should take her home. The girl understands what will happen if she tells about Alia. This would be of great benefit to Janat, who already knows too much about the island. It looks strange, so it's better for her not to arouse even more suspicion. Now the young lady turns to the maid and asks if she will bring her some aili, if it is kept in Janat, and also some writing paper. The maid replies that it is some kind of coal powder and asks why the young lady needs it, and the girl replies that she has never seen it, just like Mikkel, so she wants to send him some. The girl then says fine, and she'll tell the lady to bring a bottle for her brother's sake. The main character realizes the islanders hate aili, and now she's wondering what the current price of Alea is, but she understands that this amount is enough for a commoner family for several years and thinks that this supplement is a bit expensive. But nevertheless, for the Janat family, this is very little, and since Mikkel is a magician, then he will definitely understand what it is, and after aili becomes a luxury, she will talk to Kale again to increase the profit of money, even though Janat's main occupation is piracy. Kale will never give up a profitable business, and then she will offer him another deal that will help both Janat and Lyre. But the pirate Janat doesn't know why aili is so valuable, and most likely the problem isn't even that he doesn't know, but he simply rejects what he doesn't like, even though magical power is the source of life. But now the main character is silent for a while, after which he thinks that maybe the islanders hate the spice not because of the smell. And perhaps their hatred for aili is connected to the magical power contained within him. A little while later, a maid comes into the Duke's room, and the man asks what happened. The head maid replies that it is nothing special, but it concerns his fiancée. The man then wonders what it could be, and Shiada claims that it seems his fiancé is interested in magicians. The Duke then asks what she means and thinks that maybe the girl is interested because she is from the mainland. And according to the investigation, there were no magicians in Lyre's house, so she can marvel at them. But the timing isn't quite right, and the man wonders why she's interested in magicians on an island where there aren't any. But then he finally realizes that there was a poppy in her entourage, and it was one cheeky puppy. The woman claims she's found out the current price of aili on the mainland and seems to be planning a deal with the mages. The man asks if she wants to sell the spice to the mages, and the woman replies, yes, and. Furthermore, the girl sent a letter to her younger brother enclosing a little of this spice. The Duke wonders if the girl is interested in aili and the mages and sends aili to the younger brother, who is studying magic, and now the man is wondering if magicians and the spice of aili are really that. It's somehow connected, but something else worries him most, and now he asks if the maid reads her letters. The woman replies that yes, and she reads, after which the Duke tells her not to do that in the future. The maid then wonders why, and the Duke understands that it is because of her. He might be offended. But then silence falls between them, and then the man just sighs. And he says it's easy to go crazy. He also understands that this could leak information about the island, but he's simply letting such a dangerous situation slide, only because it might offend her. Then he turns to Shiada, and he asks if she remembers what recently happened in the garden, to which the maid replies that of course she remembers. The man turns and looks out the window. He sees the sea and the mainland beyond, but that's where the girl came from and will return there, so now he claims that he doesn't know. The maid asks the gentleman what it is, but he only claims that he doesn't know why he did it then. After all, it was definitely ineffective, and he had to find out who was behind the maids. And not to smear them, but he was too angry. The Duke understands something as the maids tried to dodge the sword. Something reminded him of something, and they were clearly from the Testelli family, so he thinks he should have captured them alive and used them as evidence against the family. And now he's asking why the hell he acted so rashly. But the Duke also understands that when he sees these eyes, their golden hair like the sun's rays in the girl's, and also when she looks at him with her soft smile on her small round face, she seems so sweet. But then the man suddenly slams his fist on the table, which surprises the maid a little, and he just wonders what he's thinking about. But then they hear someone talking behind the door, and someone turns to the lady and also claims that he will report her arrival, to which the girl agrees. But the Duke then tells her to come in, and the young lady enters the room and asks if she has disturbed him. The man replies that he doesn't, and the young lady states that she has some proposals and also wants to arrange a reception, with the presence of traders in the Sea of Jannat. The man then asks if she's talking about mages, and the girl thinks how he knows, after which she answers that it is true and she wanted to invite them to talk. The man claims that she suddenly became interested in magicians, and the girl responds, as far as she knows, organizing a reception is the right of the hostess of the house. And the Duke replies that everything is so. The young lady asks if they can go together. Kale asks if she wants to go together. And the girl claims that if he is busy, the escort could be someone from Jannat's family whom he trusts. The Duke understands that perhaps his facial expression now suggests that he will not be able to go anywhere, and, of course, he is not interested in a banquet with the presence of magicians. But now he claims that he will go, and the young lady asks if it is true, and the man asks why not. After this, the maid just puts her hand on her head and thinks how much has fallen on her, because it's a continuous headache, and the young lady replies that everything is fine, and then they go out together. After which she claims she simply thought he didn't like mages. But when the girl wants to finish her sentence, then she suddenly closes her mouth, and the man then replies that he does not love her but cannot leave his bride alone on the ship, swarming with these dubious characters, and besides it's the first banquet, at which she will be introduced as the future mistress of Jannat. The girl then asks if he pays attention to those around her because of their wedding, and the man replies that yes, and that is precisely why, but then he asks if it would be okay if they continued the conversation in the afternoon. After all, unfortunately, as the owner of this island, he has a lot of things to do that he must deal with first. Then the girl goes into her office and realizes that the appointment is scheduled for a few days. And we need to contact the mages, and it also takes time to deliver Alia. The young lady is now claiming that mages don't like shiny things, so let the maid keep the ship's glittering decorations to a minimum, provided, of course, that this will not become a problem in an emergency. And also, let her not forget to place security in places where it will not be obvious what the woman is agreeing to. And he thinks it's amazing, but this is a young lady who hasn't even really made her debut. But she handles everything as if she's been to countless receptions. The girl turns to her maid and says she needs a suitable outfit and would like to get acquainted with the young social circles of the East. The girl also understands that at the reception she will be introduced as the wife of Duke Jannat, so she must look accordingly. The maid replies that regarding the outfit, the captain wanted to see her first. The young lady then wondered if His Highness the Duke wanted to see her. And a little while later they are already heading in a carriage, and the girl understands. What was definitely written in the book was that there were no carriages on the island, and she now says that she thought there were no carriages on the island. The man claims that they were not there before, and the young lady is a little surprised, and then asks if it was recently made, to which the man replies that this is true, and he couldn't let his precious bride saddle the horse. The girl then wonders what he's talking about, but decides it's not important. But then she still remembers that Arcel doesn't know how to ride a horse, although most nobles learn to ride as teenagers. But Arcel didn't know how to do anything, and now she thanks the Duke and also wonders where they are going. The man replies that he heard the appointment is in just a few days. He wants his bride not to worry about things that a hostess shouldn't worry about. The main character then asks what things she shouldn't worry about, and the man says, for example, what to wear. After which the young lady smiles and says that's it, and is also interested. Are they going to look at the clothes now? To which the man replies that there is a family of craftsmen living on the island. What makes clothes? And the young lady realizes this guy is more caring than she thought. After all, Duke Jannat from the book, unlike other nobles, preferred to wear a modest black and white uniform instead of formal attire. Because it was quite troublesome to steer a ship in luxurious clothes, so it was described. This man doesn't care about clothes, but he is so worried about the appearance of his future wife. The man at this time looks at the young lady and then states that they are there. The main character then gets out of the carriage and thinks where they are. But it looks like an ordinary house. At this time, the couple turns to the captain and greets him, and also claims that they have been waiting for him. Then another knight runs into the room and addresses the captain. The main character is a little surprised by his appearance. The boy greets the captain and Lady Arcelle, but the Duke only tells the boy to dress properly, after which the young man asks why he is like this and turns around. He also apologizes and says he won't be staying long. The main character then says it's the Sir's mansion. Li Ji Anna, and the man claims that he should have warned her about it. It turned out awkward. The girl then says that, although it was strange, she would like to know why they brought her there, after which the woman claims that they are taking her there. However, the Duke then raises his hand and says that he will take care of everything himself and let them remind Li Jianu of his manners. The boy's parents say they're very ashamed and then leave. Meanwhile, Kale extends his hand to his wife, and he says that he will take her, after which they head to one of the rooms, and the young lady is interested. How often does he go there? To which the man replies that he remembers going there once. He was 6 years old and hasn't been there since. The young lady then says she's clear and thinking. Was this written in the book? She also realizes that she's gradually learning things about Kale that weren't in the book. Then they also go into one of the rooms, and the girl realizes that it is full of outfits. The man at this time leads her to the dresses and claims that they all belong to her. The young lady realizes that their design resembles Kale's form, while the boy asserts, "What if a young lady wears one of these dresses? Anyone who sees her will understand that she is his wife?" The young man also approaches her and claims that if the girl is seen in this dress and does not show respect, then let her remind them that she is the wife of Duke Janat, and at least in the Eastern Sea, she is no less than the emperor. At this time, the main character thinks that he is too close, and the guy at this time takes one box. Then she opens it and takes out a piece of jewelry. The main character wonders what it is, and the Duke at this time only turns to her, and the young lady wonders if this is why they came there. Kale claims he wanted to find the right dress for her, but he's not sure he hit the mark, given his fiancé's high standards. The girl understands that this is the style of clothing that she usually wears, and also wonders if he was really looking closely. At this time, the guy asks her if she likes this dress, and also confirms it. What he thinks will be good is that he will be taken into account, after which he asks him to forgive her and puts an earring on her lady. The girl understands everything from choosing clothes to accessories. He took care of everything, and now the young lady says he seems to have a good grasp of it. The man replies that when you're at sea for a long time, you learn a lot. And finally, he asks the girl, would she close her eyes for a moment? The young lady then wonders what he's about to do, but closes them anyway. However, he thinks about what happens, after which the young lady feels something cool on her face. And when she opens her eyes, she realizes it's cream. The man asks if she's really that surprised. The main character thinks, of course he does, but tells him no, and is only slightly surprised. The guy then tucks a strand of her hair behind her ear, and he takes another remedy, and also claims that he learned something from his mother, because she used to say that she needed to get some fresh air, because the island winds are choking her. The main character then asks if it's a soul, and the man answers what exactly. And she felt unbearably sad there, and she was also disappointed with the island. And she said that the stories about the honesty of the islanders are lies, and, according to her, the locals are much more cynical than people on the mainland. Well, the main character then thinks that Kale is also an islander. The man claims that at the time he was still too young and did not understand, but the locals cannot say anything to a person's face, even if they find a person disgusting. So they sent his mother to Anna. The main character then asks him what he's talking about. He also understands that the now deceased Duchess Janat was plunged into eternal sleep along with her husband as a result of an accident. However, Kale believes the islanders deliberately sent his mother to Anna to put her into eternal sleep. So now she asks if he was close to his mother, and the guy then becomes interested. Which of them is she talking about? Her own mother or her stepmother? The young lady then wonders if Duke Janat was married twice. The man claims that she knew the secret of the island, but she had never heard anything about him. And he didn't even think that she, being a bride, wasn't particularly interested in her groom's past. The young lady also understands that this simply was not in the book she read, and now she claims that everything is not like that at all. The girl then remembers how the Duke claimed that he had already banished the Testelli, but they were still there. And now the young lady remembers that the previous Duchess Janot, who was formerly Inet von Testelli, came from a family of current rebels. Due to poor health, he and Kale rarely saw each other, and he had been at sea since his youth, so they had no chance to get close. So now the young lady claims that it is possible that the Duchess of Testelli, and the man replies that yes, and also that this woman is his stepmother, and it was because of her that his mother was sent to Anna. The main character then thinks that perhaps even as a child the boy knew the true reason for his mother's immersion in eternal sleep. But his mother was simple-minded and narrow-minded, so being the strongest knight, she could not refuse anyone, and she always took the initiative. But no one was willing to go with her to Anna's. And finally, news reached them of her plunge into eternal sleep. The young man also confirms this, that if she had a little more power, no one would dare harm her. But at least sometimes it seems that way to him, and, unfortunately, no one supported his mother. But this does not concern her, so the girl should not be shy about using the name Janot, and also let her not go to dangerous places for the sake of others. The guy also mentally asks her not to let herself be put into eternal sleep, after which he claims that she is there all on her food. He thinks that it is a little strange. After all, she thought that she knew everything about Kale von Janot, but the strange thing is that she still feels his tenderness. At this time, the guy claims that it seems that the preparations for the reception are finished, and let her take this dress. Meanwhile, the main character clutches her dress and remembers her past life. There, her older sister said that she knew, and it seemed to her that this man also liked her, after which she also apologized for the fact that she got divorced. She also claimed she'd only cried today and never again. And now the protagonist understands that her duty now is to protect Mikkel, after which the young lady turns to His Highness. She also thinks that for Mikkel's sake she must not die, and she can't fall in love with Duke Gennady, and she's sure that he doesn't have any feelings for her. The Duke then asks what it is. A little while later, they are already at the table, and the man, watching the young lady, thinks that he wonders if she eats so well because of the fact that she is preparing for the banquet. She had to expend a lot of effort. But then someone entered the room and told Mrs. Arsel that a letter had arrived from her younger brother. The Duke then wondered why talk about such things during a meal. The main character claims that she has been waiting for this letter for so long and asks if she can open it right now, to which the man agrees. And the young lady thanks him, after which the maid hands her the letter and approves it. That after lunch he will bring her a paper, so that she can write a response, to which Arsel thanks her. Yeah, the Duke feels abandoned, after which he wonders if the girl would be as happy if this letter were from him. The main character then asks if he really wants to tell some secret in the message. And if so, then let him tell her now, because now they are only there together. And isn't it better than writing a letter? Afterwards, the man thinks about a word for two, and she wonders why it sounds so sweet. The young lady, meanwhile, is reading a letter from her brother, who wrote that, frankly, he didn't expect to receive a letter from her. But he wouldn't mind at all if she continued to surprise him like this. But he also wrote there, "It was a letter, but I was interested in what kind of powder she sent him." And the main character realizes that she knew it all along, because the guy immediately guessed that the spice was filled with magical power. The young man wrote in the letter that he felt pure magical energy from it, which was liked by magicians, and not only them, because ordinary people who are able to sense mana would also like it. The girl then looks at the Duke and wonders if he is talking to ordinary people who are able to sense mana. And she thought so. After all, the islanders feel rejected. At this point, the Duke turns to Shiada, and he tells her to bring paper so that she can write an answer. The woman agrees with His Highness, and the main character thanks him. After which the man smiles, and a little while later the girl writes a reply. She claims that Mikkel seems to have taken a great liking to Ailey. The Duke then pauses for a moment, after which he says that he will give her brother many more spices, and since his brother-in-law likes Ailey, he will send him a bottle when it goes on sale. The main character thanks him, but wonders why he would care so much about his future wife's younger brother. And something tells her that these two don't really like each other, but this is an excellent chance to improve their relationship. The girl also understands that Liar and Janot's estates are located nearby, so even after their divorce, they will often cross paths, and in that case, it is better not to get into debt. So now the young lady asks how she can pay for the aliyah that he will send to Mikhail. The girl also claims that for Liar, such a sum is very significant, although for the Jennett family, it is mere peanuts. The man replies that yes, the young lady is wondering what she should do. She also understands that it's not that she lacks funds, but that she needs to find a way. Therefore, now the girl claims that if he allows it, she will give him the first part of the sum and a little later the other. But the Duke at this time asserts that there is no need, after which he slams his hand on the table. And she also tells them to go, because Janot doesn't need her money. The young lady then wants to object, and the man claims that if she wants to repay him so much, she can do it differently, after which he asks her to come a little closer. The main character is a little surprised, and the man is then shocked, wondering what he just did. The young lady then wonders if it is because of the upcoming reception, and she is not confident in her acting skills, but she will do everything right, so he should not worry. The Duke then understands that she does not understand the hints, and these words seem to have wounded him to the very heart. But the man then comes a little closer to her and asks if he can do whatever he wants on the ship. The man also claims that as the organizer of the reception, he can take care of the magicians, but if she has any business with them, he will understand everything, and also hopes that he will be able to live up to her expectations. A few days later, the day of the reception arrived, and the main character was already looking at Ali's pile. The young lady also says that he prepared so much, but it cost the Jennetts a pretty penny. The girl remembers how she asked him to prepare some aliyah for use at the reception, but she understands that she only asked for a little, and Kale prepared much better than expected. And while he may not like magic, he seems to see nothing wrong with developing a relationship with it. At this point, the maid approaches the young lady and claims that the captain also sent an ale to her brother. The girl also understands that the ale spice is ready and preparations for the reception are also complete. The young lady realizes that all is well with the food, then someone approaches her, and he asks the girls if they like the spices he prepared. The main character then asks, is it really His Highness, who claims that of course, but why did he prepare so much? It wasn't worth it. The man then tells her to think of it as a gift from Janot, and the young lady agrees, also thinking that the magicians would definitely like it. After which she asks His Highness to take care of her this evening, and the man approves. That today they begin to be a married couple in everything, except one thing. The young lady then asks what he's talking about. The guy tells her to just call him Kale. The main character then asks what he's talking about, and the man replies that at today's reception, he is officially introducing her for the first time and asks if she plans to continue calling him His Highness. The young lady replies that no, and understands that although they did not officially announce their marriage, they did not hide it either. In social circles, people have a keen eye, and the magicians you'll encounter today love to gossip, so you can't look awkward around each other. However, when the girl read the novel, she thought about how beautiful his name was, and how strange it was to pronounce it. The man at this time turns to the young lady and asserts that two people who are going to get married should not be embarrassed to call each other by their first names. After which the main character agrees and calls the guy by name, and he then responds. And he calls her by her first name too. The young lady realizes it's still embarrassing and wonders how others do it. But for the Duke, it's nothing. Kale smiles at this point, and then extends his hand to his wife. And he says they should go now. The young lady then extends her hand in return, and the ship departs. Arcel approaches Kale and claims the mages will board the ship at the port. The man replies that he saw the report, and the main character asks if he will then listen to her request. The Duke replies yes, and let her speak. And the girl asks him not to say anything during this reception, but the Duke is a little surprised. After which she just smiles and wonders if she is really telling him to shut up in such a sweet voice. He also asks what the reason is for this, and the girl replies that he produces it. The impression is too terrifying to be comfortable making a deal with. The man then realizes that with such an innocent face, the girl has punched him in the gut. after which he thinks that she somehow made a deal with him, after which he wonders if she really looks scary. And the main character wonders if he is seriously asking about this, and also thinks about how to tell her, because she really thinks so. After which the young lady says that he is frightening, and understands that when she first arrived on the lands of Jannat. Then I saw a scene that was impossible to ignore, because everyone was wearing black. Everyone was in mourning clothes, and they were people from families that Kale had purges. The guy is now just silent and wondering if she is also afraid of him, after which he asks about it. The young lady then replies that she is afraid, and the man moves closer to her. And he also says that his dear bride should then respond to this terrible man. The young lady then asks what he is talking about the guy, so that she can clearly answer this scary man looking him in the face. Why is she so afraid of him? The main character is then a little surprised and wonders if he's really that upset about it. What she said was that she was afraid of him, and it seemed that this was not at all what he wanted to hear from her. After which she claimed that he was the master of this sea, and because of one of his whims and lying down on his command, she can be plunged into eternal sleep. The man then asks what about the contract, and the girl replies that even if there is one, if the guy wants to put her into a crippled sleep and declare war on Liar, then she will have no choice. And if she falls into eternal sleep, then everything will be over. The man then asks if this means she can't trust him, and the girl shakes her head and claims that he is a fairly reliable business partner, and she also says that it would be good if what she said did not happen, but what should she do? If lightning strikes the mansion one day and destroys it, the guy then thinks he doesn't like it, and he draws the line with words about a business partner. But it is the young lady who pushes him away, and the young man wonders if she herself didn't allow him to do whatever he wanted on the ship. And now he wants to cross the line that Arsel drew, and he approaches her face. However, the main character then turns to Kale and asks what he is thinking about. After all, it seems they were saying that the magicians had reached the port and would be there soon. The man then, in shock, wonders what he was just thinking about. Much time later, and after a while, magicians board the ship. One of them greets the young lady and claims that her name is Medea and that she is also the head of the second section of the Mage Tower. The protagonist then greets her, and the Duke merely watches silently. The young lady claims to be Arsel Dilar, and next to her, as they already know, is Kale von Janeth. Look, they only think that with that look they can take life. And the main character at this time claims that he is her future husband, after which the Duke smiles, and the magicians, looking at him, are shocked and wonder what just happened. Someone on the ship also claims that it is leaving soon, and one of the magicians then says that they will go. Well, then the maid approaches the lady and claims that she has prepared a cabin where she can rest if she gets tired, to which she agrees. Well, then he looks at the two maids and thinks that Rosetta and Shiata are so similar, and the girl also wonders if they are twins. Shiata then claims that one of them will have to leave, and the main character asks why, and the maid replies that as far as they know, on the mainland, twins are considered a bad omen. The main character then thinks you're from, and as a migrant from another world, she doesn't understand it. After which she claims that she doesn't care, and the maid then bows and leaves. The main character then says that everything is fine, and the woman claims that the maid is not leaving for good. Also, Rosetta's previous owner hated twins, so apparently she was shocked by her words. Arsel claims that she doesn't think twins are anything strange, and she doesn't believe in such superstitions. The Duke is a little surprised by this, and then smiles. And the maid understands. Both the previous mistress and this one say the same thing. Arsel claims that it means she should be chopped off and thrown into the sea. About 20 heads to stop people believing this nonsense. The two are a little surprised by the young lady's words. However, the Duke then remembers how he told the girl not to worry, because if anyone dared to speak such nonsense, he would immediately be thrown into the sea. The maid now claims that what the mistress simply said is enough, because no one will dare to doubt the words of the future mistress. And the main character then says that they should talk during the reception. Hey, the woman asks what she's talking about, but the girl claims that they had most likely been separated for a long time. One of them is a maid at the Jannat family's mainland mansion. The other is a maid on the island, and the chances of them meeting are slim. Therefore, the reason for their dispersal may be superstition, but she doesn't think so. That this is Kale's doing, so the young lady thinks that after the banquet she should find out who separated these two and invite Rosetta to the castle. At this time, the magician is watching them and wondering what is going on there. But she came there out of curiosity, because when she received the invitation, she thought it was some kind of evil joke. The heads of the first and third detachments had the same thoughts. That's why they wondered if what happened in Janot's house 50 years ago had been forgotten. One of the previous dukes was known for drowning mages, and the current Duke Jeneth can't stand mages. And the girl wonders if such a person can arrange a friendly reception, after which she meets the man's gaze. Well, when they see how coldly he looks at her, they think that it is impossible and most likely it was some other person. At this time, the main character approaches Madame Medea and asks Ira if she is having a good time. The girl then replies that it's already unusual to be at a reception in the middle of the sea. The main character says that she is happy, after which she takes out some bottle and pours its contents onto the food. The girl then asks what it is, and the main character replies that it is a spice. And he asks if she wants to try the bottle. The woman picks it up and is very surprised. She understands that, even if it is only a little, she feels pure magical energy, like from the mana elixir that was used in ancient times. So now she asks what it is, and the young lady replies that it is a spice called ailey from the western part of the continent. But recently, it has become very popular in the Eastern world. The girl then asks if something similar can be easily found in the West, and the main character replies that it is not so easy, but the House of Janot imports it on a regular basis. Medea then asks if they could periodically sell it to the Tower of Magicians. And the main character replies that trading is not difficult, but the current batch is already completely booked. After which, she heads with her husband in the other direction, and when they move a little further, the main character thanks Kale, after which he smiles. All the mages look on in shock, wondering what they just saw and who the hell that was. They also wonder why the Duke has such an expression on his face and whether these two are really in love. But they look closer than the rumors said. Well, they also wonder why Lady Lyre's reaction was a little strange. The main character at this time shows them a lot of jars of spices and also tells them to. They divided it between themselves, and if they liked it, they would contact the Mage Tower in the next quarter. Arsel also claims that if they like it, they will contact the Mage Tower in the next quarter, if the woman replies that, of course. But when the young lady claims that she will also contact the first and third departments, the mage says no. The woman understands that the guys from the first and third departments are only engaged in research deep within the tower and have no need for such a precious resource that can restore energy in an emergency. But for the second department, responsible for practical magic, this is an extremely necessary thing, so now she is screaming that the second department will buy everything. The girl also hands over some kind of artifact and claims that it is a means of direct communication with her, so she asks to contact her in the next quarter. The main character says that she sees that they really liked ailey and also claims that she will definitely answer them, and she swears by the name of Arsel de Liar. A short time later, they are already leaving the ship and wish Lady Arsel all the best, and also wish the Duke of Guba this healthy. The main character then turns to Kale and thanks him for fulfilling her request. However, the Duke then says she already knew they would want to buy a lei. The protagonist then curses in her mind, and the Duke insists that it was because of the reception arrangements with the mages as the main guests. She knew everything from the very beginning, right down to the spice Oli had used. The main character then wonders what he's talking about, after which she claims that Mikkel told her everything, but she didn't know that they would like it so much. The man smiles after this, but understands that it is all a lie and says that it is clear. He also recalls how the maid approached him and claimed that she had been investigating for some time to understand. How do you know about the island's garden, Ms. Arsel? It seems that's their limit. The Duke then claimed that even the intelligence department was in Janot. Known for his competence, he was unable to find out anything, and now he is wondering if there really is a channel unknown to him, allowing the exchange of information, but he personally destroyed all the traders on the island. And besides, judging by her behavior today, the girl knew not only about the island, but also about Alea from the very beginning. And she tried to avoid suspicion by writing an official letter to Mikkel, and this is all a carefully thought out lie. Now the guy removes his hand from the young lady's shoulder and understands that a person possessing such information is dangerous, and all it takes is just to twist that snow-white neck. The main character then turns to Kale, but the man, seeing her face, still stops and then states that it is time to go back because the sea wind is cold. A little while later, the main character finds herself in her room and sighs heavily. She understands that she knew it was a big deal, but was the fact that she was throwing a banquet really too much of a fuss? Now the main character also slaps herself on the cheeks and understands that there is no need to worry too much. After all, now she needs to focus on selling Ailey and what will happen after. It is now 993 in the Empire, and she first met Kale in December of 991. Therefore, the girl claims that there is not much time left and understands that he will soon receive great help from her when she manages to carry out this deal. A few days later, a maid comes into the captain's room and claims that Madame Arcel wants to see him. The man then thinks that finally, and the maid asks if she should ask the girl the reason, but he replies that no, and he already knows her, to which the woman replies, okay, and then tells Miss Arcel to come in. The man realizes that after several days of frantic activity, she's finally ready, and the girl probably plans to sell the spice to the mage's tower. The main character then approaches Janat, and she claims she wants to propose. The guy replies that he'd be happy to listen and that she should sit down and they can talk. The main character does just that and claims that Janat hasn't had a very good relationship with the magicians for a long time. The man replies that yes, disgust towards them is in their blood, so he asks why she suddenly brought up this topic. The main character understands that she needs to set the conversation in the right mood and thinks about how to do this, after which she states that then she thinks it will be problematic now to conclude a deal between Janat and the Tower of Magicians. After this, the man only drinks his tea and claims that she is right, because if he sees them again, he's afraid he might lose control and have to start a war. The young lady then asserts that's why she wants to handle the deal, and since among the Janats she is the only one who could do this, she would like to propose, and she is thinking of making the magicians raise the price of the spice significantly. Thanks to this, Janat's income will increase greatly, and in the long term the business will grow to the scale of the entire continent, and of course the income from the piracy business is much higher than that, which is reported to the imperial family. But profits that aren't reported aren't money one can freely dispose of. At this point, the man realizes she has a confident look, after which he claims he sees no reason to increase profits by trading with these vile individuals. But the main character insists she'll handle all communications with the brands, and he has nothing to worry about. The man then asks what the price of her offer is, and the girl replies that the price is 50-50. House Liar will receive half of the profits for 6 months, and if the profits are more than twice the usual, the split will be 60-40. The man then wonders if this is too much, and also wonders if this is really a business proposal and not extortion. And it's likely that this whole thing started because of Ailey. And there is also probably a way to import Ailey directly to House Liar from the West. But now this is impossible without his permission, and the guy says that this is too impressive a division of profits. And also, wouldn't it be too amazing a woman to become Janat's mistress? The girl replies that she could run a business with the dignity inherent in being Janat's mistress, but her proposal will benefit both Janat and Liar. At this point, the man realizes he's afraid, but he doesn't want to lag behind even one step, after which he finally agrees, but claims that he has a condition in return. The main character asks what it is, and the guy claims that it was during the conclusion of all deals on the Spice Ailey. They will be constantly close. The main character then asks him what he's talking about, after which he states that it's fine, and if that's what he wants, the Duke understands that when the girl uses the means of communication obtained from the mages, he might reveal the island's existence to the outside world, and he must remove anything that might pose a danger beforehand. This is how he will respond if asked about the reason. But now he's wondering why he can't take his eyes off Arcel, and why he's an athlete, and he can't give it to her. The young lady then says that Ailey needs to be delivered next block. However, the girl then notices something, after which they head there, and then go back, and Makar puts his fingerprint on the document with red ink, and he tells the man to put his seal on it too. The Duke is a little surprised by this, and then smiles. He also understands that this girl's actions cannot be predicted, after which he signs the document and hands it to the young lady. The girl thanks him, but then asks if she has anything else to offer. The man asks what it is and wonders what other extortionate deal she might be planning. The main character asks if she can invite Rosetta to the castle. The Duke then realizes that the girl seems touched by the story of the two she heard at the reception, after which he says that it is possible, but Rosetta will probably be late since she needs to look after the mansion. She says that it's okay if she arrives later, because she just wants the sisters to live together. Kale tells her to do as she pleases, because soon, in any case, all personnel matters except those concerning the knights will be in her hands. The main character thanks Kale and claims that she thought he wouldn't refuse. The girl also says that then she ran and let him rest and leave. The man is left perplexed and wonders what just happened. A little while later, the main character is already using the artifact for communication. Medea claims that the girl finally contacted her and she was really looking forward to it. The main character asks how she chewed. The girl replies that everything is fine thanks to her care. The girl also claims that the lady may have contacted her to discuss the spice, and the main character replies that this is true, after which she looks at the Duke and sees that he was looking at her. The man then directs his gaze to the documents, and the main character is a little surprised. The magician then turns to the lady, and the girl states that she will provide 20 boxes in a large box to begin with. But overall, it will be difficult due to already booked lots for existing clients. She's so sorry because she would have liked to send more so that all the mages could enjoy the ale. But the woman then replies that no, and she's immensely grateful for how quickly she got everything ready. Arsel then thanks her for her understanding. She also realizes that they actually have over 100 boxes in storage, but this product was originally intended to irritate customers. The Duke smiles at this point, thinking the young lady is lying so easily. The girl then insists that the price the Janot family was selling for the volume they already had was 2,000 gold pieces per box. But this time the price increased a little because the goods had to be delivered in a hurry. Medea replies that price doesn't matter and that the problem lies elsewhere. Well, then someone is addressing her. He also claims that rumors have already spread throughout the first and third departments. Some even sent letters to Janot. The girl then asks what they're talking about, and the main character realizes it's exactly like in the novel. But magicians don't know how to keep their mouths shut, so the news soon spread to other departments. At this time, the main character turns to the Duke and asks if he received the letters, and he asserts that they must have arrived, and not just arrived. The girl then understands what it means that they have just arrived at the mansion on the mainland, and yet she's slowly getting used to Kale's short remarks. Meanwhile, Medea turns to the young lady and asks for forgiveness, claiming she was discussing urgent news. The main character says that it's okay, and the girl then becomes interested. Could she sell all 20 boxes to their second department this time? The main character then asks, should she sell them only to the second department? But the woman insists that if inquiries come from other places, then she will buy everything at a higher price. But Arsel makes a slightly puzzled expression on his face and says that this is a monopoly, and it will also be a little difficult, and he asks what to do. The Duke understands at this point that her facial expression when she's discussing a deal is very different from when she's genuinely surprised. And he had seen that expression on his face many times. It was like that of a rabbit. The main character then asks Kale what it is, but then Medea asserts that this product, which could save the lives of the mages from the second department, Arsel wonders if there's a price limit. And the woman replies that she needs to discuss this issue first, and she will contact her about it. The main character replies that of course, and then after that she will contact other clients, to which the girl agrees, after which the connection is interrupted. Arsel claims that they will now begin to compete in price with the first and third departments. The man says that the magicians really do have a lot of money, but they're not fools. After all, if they could come to an agreement among themselves, they'll be able to buy it cheaper than they expect. The girl replies that this is true, and that mages really aren't stupid. But if money could buy pride, they would gladly do so, and soon he would see for himself. A little while later, they are already at the table, and the woman announces that the main dish for today is ready. This is a fish steak, and it will soon be served, after which the main character gives her a gift. And the Duke turns to the young lady and claims that they were contacted from the Tower of Magicians. The main character asks what is there, and the man claims that they were unable to agree on a price, and in the end, the first department offered 300 gold for the box, the second 700 gold, and the third 900 gold. The girl then thinks, "Keep it up," and the Duke merely sighs with a smile on his face. Arcel argues that it's best to sell the goods to the second department first, and the man claims that she made the deal, so let her decide. The main character turns to the maid and tells her to send 20 boxes of ale to the second department and spread the news among other clients of the Eastern Sea. It's a secret that the mages buy the ale at a high price. She used to agree. And the Duke claims that when rumors reach the Eastern Sea, the price of the spice will inevitably rise and, as the girl said, the profit will more than double. The young lady asks if their contract is still valid, and the man replies that, of course, the Lyre House will receive 60% of the profits for 6 months. The girl sighs after this and says that for some reason she even feels a little sorry that their marriage would be so short. The man is a little surprised after this and even drops the glass from his hands. The main character then asks if he is okay, and the man is just curious. Is she really that sad that she won't be able to profit from her deal with Ale anymore? The young lady notes that it's only natural that this business will only grow in the future, and Kale understands that he misunderstood everything, so he claims that it doesn't matter even if everything continues after. And the main character asks if he really wants to propose switching to a deal between the two families so that there would be trade turnover between Janat and Lyre. And the man replies that he meant that even after the divorce he could send part of the profits to Lyre because the deal with the spice ale is her merit. After all, if it weren't for the young lady, there would have been no deal. The main character only smiles and thanks him afterward. And she also thinks that the guy is too close, just like before, and wonders if he's doing it on purpose. The young lady then claims that they will have to meet at least twice a quarter to discuss the price of ale. However, the man claims that they will meet 4 times a quarter, after which he also gets a little embarrassed, and the main character is surprised and says that it's okay if that's what he wants. The man then thinks that perhaps she has too many thoughts, and he hopes that the girl will not be puzzled by his unreasonable condition. But he wants her to at least think about him sometime, after which he takes a piece of food. And when he eats it, he thinks it tastes terrible. A little while later, the maids are working in the kitchen, and one of them asks if they're both in a good mood today. The other maid replies that they are, and they all continue to talk in barely audible whispers. But after the wedding, these two will become even more attached to each other. And now they think about it with smiles on their faces, and one of them claims that when they told her that she would be the hostess, she doubted it, but they truly love each other. Another maid claims that it seems like the captain's mood has changed in recent days. But judging by the way the lady helped with the map last time, she understands maritime affairs. But then one of the maids claims that Madame Rosetta will return to the island, and she heard about it from the future mistress. The head maid then only smiles and states that she hopes the two will get married as soon as possible. A little while later, the Duke calls her, and the woman asks if the master called her. The man claims that in the future, all transactions concerning spices will be carried out by Arcel, and everything connected with Ale is under her control, so let the maid help her with whatever she needs. The woman is silent for a while after this, and the Duke asks what it is, and the woman turns to His Highness. He also claims that the atmosphere in the castle has softened recently. The man then slightly tightens the paper in his hands. He also claims that this is natural, since the mistress will be there soon. The maid smiles after this. And when he sees how the gentleman is embarrassed, he turns to him and asks if it is really His Highness. It feels like spring in my soul. The man is a little surprised after this and wonders what these feelings are. When the girl smiled shyly and when their lips almost touched. And also when she looked at him so fragile. Hoping for protection, she kept pretending to be strong, but when he took her hand, he felt that she was trembling. But he still understands that it all started from the moment he saw her gaze at their first meeting. That's why he's completely blushing now, thinking about it. A little while later, the main character opens the locker, and she sees that it's full of gold coins. The young lady also understands that this is excellent, and the deal for Ale has gone smoothly. And the first payment for the spices is equal to a year's income for House Lyre. The young lady understands that she cannot hand over this money to House Lyre now, and she thinks that they should be kept there for now. after which the girl sits down at her desk. And he places his hand on the map, thinking that now is the time to do it. The girl caught the head maid. And when she comes in and asks if Mrs. Arsel wanted anything, the main character asks if Shiata would like to ask the Duke. Give her a little time. The woman replies that yes, and she will immediately confirm His Highness's schedule. She also asks if the lady can tell the purpose of her meeting, and the main character understands that Shiata has been more polite in recent days. After which the girl states that she wants to see the gentleman and asks if this is not enough. The woman then understands everything and claims that she will immediately tell him. A little while later, the main character is already walking with the Duke through the garden. He asks if she wants to make a deal before the disaster. The girl replies that she does. The man then only smiles, and also remembers how the maid suddenly came to him, and she said that His Highness should change right now, and now the man is thinking, of course, why else would the girl come to him with her? He wonders what kind of disaster is approaching, and understands that the young lady comes to him only with the secrets of origin, which he is not allowed to know. The girl claims that a tsunami will soon hit the east coast, so she is going to build a breakwater on the lands of Lyre. And if he doesn't mind, then she would like to build the same breakwater on the coast of Janat's possessions. The guy then asks what she's talking about, and the young lady insists she'll do it out of Lyre's budget. The man then asks if she even knows how long Janat's coastline is, and given the financial state of Lyre's house, that would be a bit much. The girl replies that of course she knows, after which the Duke only remains silent, and he wonders what kind of self-confidence this is. Then he leans toward the young lady and asserts that this is a tempting offer, but he wonders if she is proposing this because she thinks the coastline of the Duke she is marrying is dangerous, or because she wants something from Janat. The girl only claims that there will be no need to worry, because this way Janat's property will not be damaged even if a tsunami hits. Then the breakwater will do its job, and in return let him simply allow us to buy the Tinta forest. The man then asks her why she needs this forest and understands that it is called the native land of poisons. He also understands that there is no benefit from it, since the earth is saturated with poison and the forest is known to be expensive and useless. However, the main character smiles and claims that she wants to buy this forest and manage it personally. The girl thinks that in a few years, the Tinta forest will be a hot topic of discussion and everything will be covered in a poisonous fog that will plunge the surrounding environment into eternal sleep. But later, golden sands will be discovered there, and this will be a real jackpot, the man asserts at this point. That forest management requires labor, and it would be more profitable for Janat to build a breakwater. But if the tsunami never happens, the breakwater will be useless. The girl, however, insists that it will strengthen the Janat coastline. Meanwhile, the man realizes that no matter what profit the deal with Ailey brings, the costs will be too high. So now he asks why the girl wants to buy this forest, and she answers that it is for studying plants, because everything there is lined with magical herbs. The man also wonders if this is all for the sake of her brother's future, who will become a magician, and the girl replies that of course it would be great. Build a house there where she will live with Mikkel. The man sighs heavily after this, and the young lady asks what it is, after which he claims that it is good, and they will also conclude this contract, but in exchange. The construction will be carried out secretly, and the young lady is a little surprised, while the man claims that rumors about the construction of a breakwater may spread, and then the families living on the coast will raise a fuss, especially if it becomes known that Janat and Lyre are acting together, and then her uncle can also build a breakwater. After which the man asks if she wants this, and the girl understands that she definitely does not, and she doesn't want to give him such information under any circumstances, and yet the very thought makes her blood boil. The man at this time argues that it is not worth leaving such valuable information to the enemy, after which he sighs completely and offers to sit down and rest, because he also has something to tell her. However, when they approach the bench, the man tells her to wait, after which he takes out a handkerchief, and he spreads it out on the bench and tells the girl to sit down. The main character does just that, and then thanks him, and also realizes that she sometimes forgets how wonderful his manners are. The man then turns to Arcel and asks if she knows how many people are hunting for her in the Eastern Sea. The girl is then a little surprised and asks what he's talking about. The man simply states that he means, does she know how many people they set their sights on her, after which he takes out some letters and hands them to the young lady. The girl takes these letters and then thinks, is this really an invitation? But there are so many of them. The guy claims that he decided to give them to her, and the young lady wonders if he is personally giving them to her. She also thinks it's a bit strange, and the Duke claims she can take her time browsing. The main character understands that most of the invitations are from families that you don't need to worry about, but this letter is from Count Arpad, and the young lady understands that the Count's house of Arpad is the family that lives next to the estate of Viscount Parr. And at the funeral, they and the Viscount were the first to bare their fangs. Now the girl is reading the text of the letter, which says that this is the most beautiful lady of the East Coast, and she expresses her condolences on the loss of the Lyre house. It also says that she and Countess Lyre maintained friendly relations, so she could not help but be saddened by the news. And I would like to invite her and the girl's brother to a small reception, thereby brightening up their loneliness. The Duke asks if she is going to attend the reception, and the young lady replies that she does not know, and that there is an invitation, but still. And the man claims that if you think about it, he heard that Count Arpad's son is looking for a bride. The young lady replies that this is true, and that Countess Arpad even took the time to discuss his wedding during the funeral, although his opinion didn't interest her at all. The girl also understands that the young master of the Arpad household is known for his dissolute behavior, and looking back, she's truly glad she chose Kale. The man smiles at this time and also claims that he knows in advance what kind of atmosphere will reign at the reception and what their conversations will be about. After which he asks if there is a better groom than him, and the girl replies that there definitely is and he is beyond competition. And the guy insists that means he needs to send a response as soon as possible. The young lady then asks what he's talking about, and the Duke asks if she is against it, after which he touches the letter in the girl's hands. And he asks if it's not worth responding to this base provocation, and also showing it, that there's no better suitor for her on the entire East Coast. The man also thinks this would be the best thing. After all, then those who targeted her would disappear. The girl then replies yes, however. She doesn't think she'll go to this reception, because considering that the reception is being hosted by Arpad's house, there will also be other families present at the funeral. The man at this time asks if she will let herself be caught in this trap, and claims that this is a wise decision. And later they themselves will invite them to Janat for their wedding. The girl is already imagining it all, and the Duke at this time turns to her and claims that he wanted to say something else. The girl just thinks what she imagined, and the man claims that in a month, Ella will go on a hike to Anna. Therefore, he won't be able to manage Lyre's affairs, and Kale asks if he should introduce another knight. But the girl replies no, and lets Sir Ella handle everything. Before and after setting out on a campaign, it would be a good idea to run errands for a knight from House Lyre. The man then wonders if the assistance of the Janat knights will be unnecessary, and the girl claims that she thinks that she will soon be able to use another person, so there is no need to redistribute people. The young lady understands that around this time, Lyre's true guardian must make his presence known. He is a loyal ally with excellent swordsmanship, who was never able to see the light of day after being plunged into a crippled sleep by his brother and sister Lyre, and his name is Khan. The girl understands that with his help, she will be able to get Lyre's house back on its feet. The Duke is silent for a while after this, but then agrees, but wonders who has earned her such trust. In a place teeming with enemies. A short time later, the aristocrats are already reading the newspaper, and one of them asks her husband if he's heard that Lady Lyre is building a breakwater. The man then wonders if she's crazy, and his wife asks why the lady who had never been to the beach was so worried about the coast. Now the main character is also reading this newspaper and thinks that rumors about the construction of a breakwater by the Lyre house have leaked out. And now she simply turns to the maid, telling her to serve more tea. The girl also understands that no one has paid attention to the breakwater being built and to Janat. And that's enough for her. Because let them make as much noise as they want, but thanks to her, during the coming disaster, only Janat and Lyre will be safe. At this time, the maid hears some sound from the window, after which she approaches him and asks for forgiveness. Well, when she opens this window, something instantly flies by, and the women are a little surprised, after which They scream to Mrs. Arsel, but the main character just grabs this little plane and claims that it is a letter from Mikkel. The girl also says that he is improving in delivering letters, day by day. After which, the young lady reads this sheet, and the guy there asks the young lady to tell how she is doing, and after all, it was her birthday recently. He is sad that for several years in a row they cannot celebrate it together, and he is trying his best to graduate as soon as possible. Tamil has an early graduation system. The main character now asks if he's written about early graduation. The young man writes that although no one has ever managed to graduate early, he thinks he can. The main character also notices something on the back, and the guy in the letter points it out. He also sends her a portrait of himself and misses her very much. The video's protagonist is a little surprised by this photo, wondering if the guy has really matured that much. At this time, the young man is walking through the academy, and a professor from the Faculty of Magic approaches him, named TR. The man asks if the boy is considering becoming his personal apprentice, and the young man apologizes, claiming that, as he said last time, he has a reason for graduating early. The man then claims that this is why he didn't want to talk about it today. Afterwards, he hands the boy a letter, and the boy almost glows at the sight of it. He also thanks the professor and apologizes, but insists he needs to run. Then he leaves the man alone, and he only thinks about what he just saw and whether it was really Mikkel. The girl wrote back to her brother asking how he was doing, and he sent a golden paper airplane, so it's surprising, and it's unlikely that many people received letters like that. The young lady also claims that she saw his portrait and her Mikkel has grown so much that it would be nice if she personally watched him grow up, and she feels so sorry. The boy then claims he'll soon graduate from the academy and continues reading. The young woman wrote that she'd be overjoyed if he graduated early. Well, if it doesn't work out, then it's not a big deal, because she hopes that he will do it without her presence. He's having a good time at the academy, and the girl also asks if he remembers that she sent him that she was going to marry the Duke when she turned 20, and their marriage will be dissolved when the guy graduates, so if she gives him permission to finish the academy before the wedding, then maybe she won't have to get married. The young man then practically screams that he's graduating right now, but when he reads the next line, he sees it's just a joke. The girl also wrote that she would write to him again later. The young lady also wrote in her letter that he asked her what she planned to do after the divorce. And the young lady replied that she was not going to remarry because she did not want someone to turn her life upside down. And then he asked what would happen if a man appeared nearby who would bring stability. And she said that's the kind of man she'd marry. A man who would bring stability to her life. The young man at this time squeezes the paper and then asks what the hell this idiot is thinking about. At this time, the main character is on the ship and thinks about how her eyes are being blinded. At this time, someone turns to Arsel and says that she shouldn't have gone outside. The Duke claims that this time the journey will be longer, and the young lady claims that as a responsible person, she cannot remain on the sidelines. After all, this ship will deliver Ale to the Tower of Magicians, and she needs to get used to the sea, at least for the time being, while she's Janat's mistress. The girl understands what Mikkel said about graduating early. But no matter how hard he tries, this year it will be difficult to do this, and at least several more years will pass, so it is worth getting used to the sea so as not to harm Janat's reputation. At this time, the Duke repeats her words in his head and asks if she thinks so and if this means that when she returns to the mainland, she will never set foot on the deck of a ship again. The young lady claims that there is no wind on the mainland, which makes her body tremble, and the man asks if she likes the sea breeze. To which the girl replies that she likes it, but the man just thinks that the smell of raw fish mixed with the smell of red liquid is sometimes disgusting to him. Well, the young lady is unlikely to feel it. Then the ship suddenly starts to tilt, and the main character gets a little scared and tries to catch her hat so that it doesn't fly off, but it's too late and it starts flying into the ocean. The Duke immediately grabs her and embraces the young lady. The girl then opens her eyes, and he thinks how close he is, and the guy claims that everything is fine, but then the ship rocks again, and a monster emerges from the water. The knights then cry out that they need to prepare for an attack, and the Duke turns to Chris and tells him to figure out what the guy is agreeing to. Kale tells the young lady that it is dangerous there, so they go to the cabin, to which the girl agrees. After they enter the room, the man asks if she is very scared, to which the young lady replies that she is a little scared. The guy says that monsters don't usually appear there, and the young lady wonders if the targets recently dealt with most of the monsters near Anna. Kale replies that yes, but monsters have been appearing more and more often lately. The main character says it's a bit creepy, and she understands that she does not want the people of Janat to suffer, even though she will have to leave this place one day. The girl claims that if more monsters appear, Janat will have a lot of work to do with sending ships. The guy replies that yes. He also says that there is an agreement between the imperial family and the House of Janat, according to which the latter became the guardian of the Eastern Sea. But since Janat settled in the Eastern Sea, he didn't receive any support from the imperial family, and now the guy claims it. Now that the sea is in his hands, if a decree to exterminate the pirates were issued later, he wouldn't even know which would be better, whether he or the emperor would be plunged into eternal sleep. The main character is then a little surprised and thinks how one can talk about this so simply. At this time, Chris also comes into their room and addresses His Highness, and the man says that it looks like that's it, after which he places his hat on the young lady and invites her to go. As they exit, the Duke also addresses Chris. He says that upon returning to the island, he should tell Shiata to examine Anna. The man agrees. Meanwhile, the main character is lost in thought. Chris also addresses the captain, and he claims that Anna's currents are anomalous, so it will be difficult to study it using conventional methods, and then the man says that they should use the mainland's macros, and let him take them as sea guests and send them to Anna. The protagonist understands that he called them sea guests, and that means they won't return to the mainland, after which the young lady looks back at the sea, and he thinks that it and Kale are ruthless, although you can forget about that for a minute. Well, why is it so surprising that she adapted while remaining herself? Now the Duke claims they have arrived at the Mage's Tower. After some time, they are already sitting at the table, and someone tells His Highness that an envelope has arrived from the imperial family. The main character is then a little surprised, and the man says that he came after all. Then the young lady reads what is written there, and it states that this sheet belongs to the eldest daughter of Lohan de Liar, Arcel de Liar. And since this year she reached the age of majority and also accumulated enough experience in managing territories, they announce her official becoming the head of the Liar House. The main character now says with a smile on her face that it finally happened and understands that she has been officially recognized as the head of the family. The man insists that they can finally get married, and the young lady then says that it is true. Kale claims that the wedding kept being postponed because the imperial family was stalling for time. But he also thinks that the wedding was postponed because of her, after which he claims that although their wedding will take place in a residence on the mainland, there is nothing to be done, and he does not want to give a chance to a pack of these hungry wolves. The maid then turns to the master and asks him how he likes the idea of building a new castle on the mainland. She also asks about the scale, and the man replies that it should be at least twice the size of an ordinary noble mansion. After this, the main character only smiles and says that she can't wait for their wedding. The Duke then says that this is wonderful and claims that he will prepare everything perfectly. A little while later, the young lady already has a dress sewn, and they are busy preparing for the wedding. A little while later, the knights inform His Highness that preparations for the wedding are complete. The man says that this is good and then, with a smile on his face, heads towards his bride. The girl then says that the sea is so calm today, but the man claims that it is stormy. Then the day his fiancée first stepped onto the ship, the girl then asks if it's true. The man claims that the wedding invitation should have already reached its recipients, and as she wanted, they were sent to the families who sent invitations to the reception. The main character now thanks him. Then she mentions the name Fawn de Par. She claims that even after her rejection, he sent her letters several times. There he claimed that he had sent a man to Liar's house several times, but he was informed that she was not there, and her parents apparently had not taught her anything, since there were various rumors about Janat's house, saying that the Duke had still not married and was looking for a young noblewoman, and shouldn't he find a suitable match? And yet, his wife is just throwing a reception for her. Meanwhile, the girl is just tearing this sheet into little pieces. She understands that the reception they have all been waiting for so persistently will only take place now. She will be the main character. Meanwhile, Kale claims he heard that the mainland's inhabitants prefer to burn such things, and the young lady asks what difference it makes since they are in the sea anyway. after which the guy confirms that a long-awaited event awaits them, but he's already dissatisfied. The young lady then wonders what he's talking about, and the man asks if she is going to mock the guests, and has completely forgotten about her husband who is thirsty for her attention, and he asks if he should cut off their heads to get her attention. Their main character understands that he is saying such cruel things again, after which the young lady continues to talk to him and claims that they will indeed soon be married. And after all, the islanders and everyone kept saying that the island didn't like outsiders, but she fell in love with the place. The girl understands that she came to conclude the first deal with the Liar Water area, and she had no time to be afraid, so she just tried her best to change the ending of the book. And also so that Mikkel, who was desperately squeezing her hand just like she once did before her rebirth, would definitely become happy. The girl understands that a happy ending is still far away, but they are still a little closer to it. And this time they will definitely be happy together with Mikkel, and they will do it together. A little while later, the girl is already in one of the rooms and is getting ready for the wedding. Well, then the maid comes into the room and claims that Mikkel never came. A little while later, someone says it's time for the young lady to come out. The protagonist then turns to the head maid, and he asks what is going on with the carriage of the Tamiya Academy, but the woman replies that it is not there yet. The main character understands that the first stage of a blessed wedding is the ceremony, and when one of the bride's family members takes her friend to the groom, well, then she wonders what to do for those who don't have a single relative. After which the young lady thinks that, okay, in any case, this is just a contract marriage and in a couple of years it will not matter. But because of all this fuss with that preparation, she feels like a fool. And then the main character thinks that nothing can be done. After which she goes to the door, and she tells them to open the door because she will go alone, after which the door opens and they say that the bride is about to come out. The Duke then looks at the young lady, but wonders where Mikkel de Liar is. The aristocrats also begin to whisper and ask why the bride came out alone and even without bridesmaids. One of them asks if the girl had a younger brother, and the main character at this time thinks that everything is fine, and she copes, after which, and her husband comes to her, and the main character thinks why he does this. After which the man invites her to go together, and the main character takes his hand. Well then, someone hits Kale's hand and tells the Duke to take his hand away. When the main character turns around, she's a little surprised, and she says that it's Kale. The guy then kisses her hand, and the girl insists that he arrived, and Mikkel tells his sister that he's a little late. After which he looks at the Duke, who only claims that the latecomer has shown up, and then he will take his place, after which the main character agrees and thanks him. At this time, the young man looks at the Duke in surprise, after which he remembers how the girl in the elevator wrote that after the divorce, she wants to build a mansion in a quieter place and live in it. She also plans to buy a forested area because the guy will be able to do magical research there, and she will also build a library with a small house to serve books in. And they will live so happily together. Meanwhile, the main character turns to Mikkel and tells him they need to go. And the guy at this time is just wondering if she is really going to get a divorce, but doesn't the girl notice how treacherous this guy's gaze is, and this scoundrel doesn't even think of letting her go. And then they go there anyway, and one of the men just gets angry and realizes that he heard rumors about Duke Janot. But he didn't think that things would turn out this way, and he bribed all the employees of the Liar House, and even the knights, and therefore if he had only slightly overtaken the territory of Liar, would have been in his hands. That's why he doesn't understand why the hell Duke Janot decided to marry Arcel. He also looks at these two and thinks, doesn't this look like a pity wedding? Well then, one of the servants turns to the Viscount and the man asks what he wants. The boy claims that his master is looking for him. The man then asks if he is the master. And at this time the priest says that the respected guests who have gathered there should bless this precious relationship, and may the god of the seas send only fair winds to all those present. After which they put the rings on each other, and the priest says that now they should exchange a vow kiss. The main character then asks him what he's talking about, and the man claims that the two of them will officially become husband and wife after a kiss. The brunette then just smiles and pulls the girl closer to him and asks, shouldn't they advertise to everyone else that they don't have a chance? The main character then closes her eyes and thinks there's nothing she can do. Kale then says that they have nowhere to rush, after which he removes the veil from his wife, and he kisses her forehead, then her cheek. The main character thinks it's not that difficult, and in any case, it's just a stage in the ceremony. Well, then the Duke turns to her, and when the young lady raises her head, then he just kisses her. The girl is then a little surprised and thinks that they are as if overwhelmed with emotion, that they can tear themselves away from the kiss, and then the young lady's brother also looks at the Duke, after which she smirks completely. A little while later, the main character runs up to Mikkel. The young man turns to his sister with a little concern, and the girl immediately hugs him, after which she claims she misses him very much. The young lady also says they haven't seen each other for only 3 years, and she wonders when he managed to grow so much. He previously claimed that she too had become unrecognizably beautiful, and the young lady replies that she hasn't changed anything like that in appearance at all. After which the girl asks how long he was released for, because she knows that in Tamila there are strict rules regarding absences. The young man then claims that, alas, he is there only until tomorrow, and the main character says that it is not long enough. After which he says that he wishes he would graduate sooner. The young man then turns to his sister, and he also looks at the Duke and claims that he will finish his studies as soon as possible. The young lady then asks if it is really that hard to graduate early, and the guy replies that it really is. He thinks one of his professors doesn't like him because he only got a B+ in his class. The main character asks how anyone could dislike him, and the guy claims that this man offered him to stay after graduation as his personal student, but he refused. The young lady understands that if the talented Mikkel teamed up with an outstanding teacher, he would be able to fly like a winged bird, and she argues that this is a good chance, so why did he refuse? However, the young man claims that this is because it is more important for him to stay close to her. The main character is then touched by these words and says that she knew it, because her brother is the best. The Duke then turns to Arsel and apologizes for interrupting, but claims that there are many who wish to greet her. The girl then asks for forgiveness, but claims that they haven't seen each other for so long, after which she tells Mikkel that she will go to other tables for a while, and the young man only turns sadly to his sister. After which he turns to the Duke and looks at him with a furious gaze. He also asks if he is allowing himself too much, and the man is interested. Did he really go too far, simply by kissing his wife? And then the young lady's brother tells him not to behave so inhumanely. As far as his sister is concerned, they'll get divorced anyway, but Kale insists that until then, they have to pretend to be a couple. After which the young lady's brother claims that sister considers this marriage to be genuine. Unlike him, Kale only curses after this and claims that of course he knows it too. But there's nothing to be done, they're already married. At this point, Arsel turns to Kale, and he asks if they can greet the guests together, and she thinks that they should look like they are in love. The man replies that, of course, and if his brother-in-law doesn't mind, he will go, since both spouses should greet the guests. After which Kale approaches his wife and says that it looks like many people are waiting for them there. That same evening, the man walks down the corridor and sighs, thinking that it's all over. He also thinks that he understands what that puppy was saying, and as soon as the banquet ended, the girl immediately left. And, of course, he has no reason to detain her when she leaves. Well then, he approaches the young lady's door, and she wonders what her reaction will be if he approaches. A short time later, the young lady asserts that when she returns to Lyre's house, she will begin by organizing a nightly squad. The girl claims that she cannot take up trade as firmly as Janat, but at least she will be able to provide traders with safety on her lands. The young lady also says that this is how she intends to get the House of Lyre back on its feet, and that is why she came to the Duke. The girl also claims that it seems like she is the only one who speaks there, and also asks questions. Does Kale want to tell something? However, the man remains silent after that, and he starts mentally counting the jewelry. The main character then asks if he really doesn't want to say anything at all. The Duke then starts staring at her and wonders how the girl can be so carefree. He can't even drink for fear of losing control, but the girl is currently downing another glass, and she's probably saying that if she keeps drinking that fast, she'll be fine. However, he understands that this wine is drunk by sea dwellers, and it is too strong for an earthly man. So he needs to warn Arsel to be careful with alcohol. The main character simply insists that, since he's silent, she'll be the one doing the talking again. And the girl claims that after the divorce, she will no longer be the Duchess of Janat, and therefore will not be able to use the eastern trade route. However, she still hopes that the Janat pirates will not target the ships of House Lyre. It would be a shame if people she knew attacked her knights. The man then clenched his fist, and he wonders if she really thinks that way about him. And that, despite the number of ships crossing the Eastern Sea, he'll be the one ripping off Lyre. And does she think that since they're reliable partners, once the deal is over, they become like strangers, after which he approaches the young lady, but then accidentally puts his hand on hers, which surprises him a little. Well, he still decides not to stop, and takes her hand in his, to which the young lady is a little surprised. The guy is completely embarrassed. The main character then turns to Kale and asks why he's looking at her like that. But then the girl begins to feel sleepy, and she drops the glass altogether. The Duke simply grabs him, and Armel apologizes, claiming she suddenly felt so sleepy. She also asks if Kale knows a way to quickly regain consciousness. The man replies that something came to his mind, but he is afraid that she will be scared. The girl then asks if she really looks like a timid person, after which the Duke approaches her. The main character is a little surprised, and the man then asks if she's come to her senses. But the girl just looks at him in surprise. Then he says it's worth doing again. The young lady then asserts that she thinks that if she remembers about it tomorrow. However, the guy interrupts her and asks what will happen if she remembers, after which he tells the girl to remember. And he lays her on the bed and tells her to remember everything well, after which he hangs over her. And then he kisses her, after which he lifts her dress higher but suddenly stops. And he buries his face in her shoulder and wishes her good night. Kale insists that if he goes further, he is afraid she'll be disappointed in him. The young lady then simply closes her eyes, and the next morning she wakes up. The girl thinks about how her head is splitting and asks for water. She realizes that her head is aching like a sleepy headache. It's clearly a hangover. But yesterday she drank wine. The main character also looks at the man next to her, and she wonders how this happened. But then the young lady remembers what happened yesterday and becomes very embarrassed, and also wonders if she didn't blurt out all her plans for the future yesterday. But the main thing is that she didn't say anything about the gold mine in the Tinta Forest, and at least something makes her happy. Well, in any case, this is a divorce. She has to take the forest for herself. And then the girl thinks that yesterday she didn't do anything strange. However, then she remembers how the man told her to remember all of this down to the smallest detail, and now the girl is sitting there completely red. Afterwards, she also remembers what happened afterward and wonders if it was all a dream, because why did Kale behave that way? But the main character still realizes that they really did kiss, and maybe it was all because of that one. That Kale was also drunk, and the girl also remembers the kisses at the wedding and thinks that it was a performance, and even the way he spoke. Shouldn't they tell everyone else that? There's no room for them. So now the young lady thinks he must have been drunk, because nobles aren't exactly fond of gossip. So the wedding guests were so interested in the wedding night that they even left a whole mountain of gifts and flowers outside the bridal suite. The main character then looks at her husband's shining face and thinks how he can act like that, making a girl's heart flutter. But the guy really is more gentle than he seems. After which the young lady whispers that she likes him. Then she wonders if he heard anything, and then gets out of bed and quietly says that she was happy last night. The young man only makes a sound in his sleep, and the main character realizes that it seems he doesn't hear. But before the divorce, she must keep her head cool, because if she's careless, she might tell about the gold mine in the Tinta Forest. When the main character leaves the room, the guy simply places his hand on his forehead and sighs. A short time later, one of the aristocrats claims he couldn't even imagine that Duke Janat and his wife will be so passionate, and his wife replies that this is for sure, and during the ceremony they could not take their eyes off each other, and they say that they only recently left the chamber as newlyweds. And then the man claims that a sweet newlywed couple has appeared. Meanwhile, the main character picks up a piece of paper from her brother, where he writes that he was so pleased to meet his sister after a long time. Apparently, the wedding ceremony had exhausted her greatly, and he had already left, so she hoped to finish the academy soon and return. The main character then apologizes to Mikkel and realizes she hadn't even had the chance to say goodbye to him before leaving. She also thinks she needs to text him urgently so her brother won't get upset. Then she hears someone knocking on the door and telling them to come in, after which the maid comes in and asks if the shipowner slept well, because she and the gentleman are simply amazing and just got up and started working. The main character then asks what a ship owner means, and the woman claims that since she got married, she became, so to speak, the mistress of the ship, and this is also what they say about the mistress of the house and the person who manages the finances. Arsel says it's surprising, and the maid asks if she's not tired of being addressed as milady. She also claims to have heard that the mistress had a good night last night, after which the main character becomes a little embarrassed and answers that yes, and the maid asks how many times this has happened, but the girl interrupts her and asks if the maid will fulfill one of her requests. The girl replies that, of course, the young lady wants her to bring her a list of all the names in Liar's house, from knights to maids. Lila asks if the mistress wants to investigate anything, and she replies no, only to find out the names. She adds silently that she already knows everything. The maid then agrees and claims that the list will be made immediately. A short time later, she presents the list to her mistress and says that she has entered it. The main character then asks in shock if she really did it so quickly, even though it hadn't even been a couple of hours. The woman replies that it all came from the mainland. The girl then thanks the maid and takes this paper, after which she sees a man named Khan who is in the squad of knights, and the main character says yes, after which she takes her pen and writes something. She then hands the maid a paper and tells her to read it and contact House Liar. The girl then asks what to tell them. The main character says she should tell them that all the servants of House Liar have been fired. The girl is shocked after this, but Arsel only smiles and tells her to announce that all the servants are being dismissed except one. A short time later, a knight enters His Highness's room, and he claims he brought what he ordered. He also claims it's a list of mages for mana research and hands over the papers. The man claims he selected those capable of this but whose disappearance will have no consequences. The man then says that those who become sea guests will be taken. The knight compliments his master and asserts that they cannot leave alive those who have learned the island's secret. The man then recites Professor Tiara's name. The knight claims he's the most talented of them all. Kale then argues that it would be too much of a burden if they invited Professor Tamila as a sea guest. The knight insists that he could be treated as a missing person if he attracts unnecessary attention, but the Duke replies that it's not worth the risk, and let him find another. Ella then asks if that means they should send a mage with the appropriate experience, and the man replies that it's better to send someone who won't cause a stir. But the knight insists it would nevertheless be much better to meet Professor Tiar. The Duke replies that yes, but there's no point in wasting so much time on him. The man also claims that reports of monsters appearing in unusual places continue to arrive, and recently he interrupts his story and recalls how a young lady was frightened by the monster. The knight turns to the captain and asks if Togo is bothered by something, to which the man replies that he is. He also recalls how the main character claimed to have enjoyed it, and last night she was happy. Goethe also thinks that when she turns around in that stall, he might grab her and ask if she really was happy, and maybe she wanted to spend the night with him again. He also wondered if the girl would have been able to look at him like that back then, not drunk. Now he was just clutching the paper in his hands, after which he turns to the knight and asks what his first kiss was like, to which the guy is surprised and then becomes completely embarrassed. The Duke asks if the kiss made him happy, to which the boy replies that it's something he doesn't dare talk about. The man then tells him to speak as he pleases, and not to worry. Kale wonders what happens after a first kiss, and whether it's normal for him to be nervous and unable to forget that moment. The knight then simply turns away from his master. He freezes, wondering if he's truly strange. However, the knight, all embarrassed, insists he's simply never kissed before. The Duke, a little upset, then says, okay. He leans over and says he missed the opportunity. The knight apologizes for not being able to help, and the man then wonders what Arsel is doing now. Meanwhile, the girl again tells the maid to announce that all the servants are being fired, except for a man named Khan. The woman is then a little surprised and asks if she's really going to fire everyone except one, to which the main character agrees. The maid then asks about him too, after which she also looks at all these names and asks the lady what is written next to them, to which the girl replies that these are their positions. The maid apologizes afterward, but insists that if she fires all the servants, there will be no one left to take care of Liar's house. The protagonist thinks that while that's true, it's impossible to allow spies to continue working there. After all, she married Kale to protect her rights to the Liar House, and the time had come to make the estate her territory, as well as prepare everything for the full revival of the Liar House. Now the girl just smirks contentedly, and the maid asks the mistress what happened, and the main character then states that, in general, let her take care of it first, and she will find an option for servicing the estate, to which the woman agrees, after which she leaves, leaving the young lady alone. The girl then goes to the window and realizes that she has no need to rush, because she can think about how to restore Liar. But first, focus on Khan, and soon a gold mine will be found in the Tinta forest, and Janat's people will rule that place, and all that will be required of her is to invest in gold in the mountains. But now the main character thinks that she will get a gold mine after the tsunami, so she built a breakwater, but she also thinks about what strings are there. After which, she looks at the calendar in shock and realizes the tsunami never happened. Meanwhile, the servants in Liar's house are talking among themselves, and one of them insists that the master of the estate is not there anyway, so why should they clean up? Another girl insists that they don't have to feign loyalty until their mistress returns. Her friend counters that she wasn't there for 3 years anyway, and that she heard the girl recently got married and moved into Janat's house. So why would she even go back there? Her colleague insists that's not true, and that someone from her comes from time to time. Last time, he asked their names. Another maid then asks if the mistress wants to return, since her master told her to get as close to her as possible when she arrives. The other girl replies that, like her, we need to focus on lowering this girl's guard, but in any case, she's just a 20-year-old simpleton. Another maid claims these are her words, and that this girl shows no interest in the servants and doesn't even pay them. Her colleague claims that perhaps this time she's coming to give out everything that's accumulated, but then they hear someone walking, and then the knight enters the room. The maid starts whispering, and one of them claims she thought they would arrive together this time, but he's alone again. But then one of them sees the guy bringing something. She whispers to her friend that perhaps Arsel really will return to the estate and they will finally get their paycheck, and that maybe they should convey this information to the master. The knight then merely turns to his service and claims he's come to deliver a command from Lady Arsel, the mistress of House Liar. He then claims that the entire knightly troop, with the exception of Khan, is present, and all the servants are dismissed. The woman then asks what it is, but the knight only asks her name, to which she replies that her name is Ellie. The knight then claims that she is from County Par. The woman is surprised after this, and the man continues to read the names and where these servants came from, and also states that if there are no objections, then let them leave the mansion today. The knight also understands that the people from the mainland are spies, paid by other families, and that they have no loyalty whatsoever. But he also wonders how the lady knew which families they were spies for. The main character is in the garden at this time, and then someone comes up to her and asks if she likes flowers. It turns out to be the Duke, and he asks if he should make a bouquet out of them so she can enjoy them in her room. The girl is a little embarrassed and remains silent, but then he replies that no, and everything's fine. The main character, noticing his sullen face, asks what's wrong and says that she just likes looking at these flowers like this with him. The man looks a little embarrassed after this, and the main character smiles and says that this way they can pretend they're on a date, after which he dejects again. The Duke also says he heard an interesting story there, and the young lady asks what he is talking about. The guy claims that she fired all the servants of the Liar House except for one person, after which the young lady smiles and claims that this is a knight named Khan. He will become captain of the knightly company of House Liar. The man then asks if he will become captain, and the young lady replies that everyone else has already been bribed by other families. The Duke then realizes that Arsel knew this time, and not only that all the servants of House Liar were bribed, but it's also important to know which specific families bribed whom, and apparently she's 100% sure of her guess, with one exception, but mistakes definitely happen. He also recalls how the young lady claimed there would soon be a large tsunami on the east coast, but he thinks that he is still not there, and since the girl was wrong about the natural disaster, but at the same time she is good at dealing with people, he wonders if this means that she is getting information from some guild. The man then turns to Arsel and asks how she knows this. He leans closer to her and repeats his question. However, the young lady tells him to wait and confirms. What he did say was that he was corroding everything. Kale claims he tried, but at some point, he hit a dead end. The main character asks if he's hit a dead end, and the man claims she's noticeably different from the person she was a couple of years before the funeral, and it's as if a completely different person is standing before him now. The young lady is a little surprised after this, and the man asks if he's wrong, after which he looks at her coldly and then smiles. He thinks it's quite curious, and the girl, who always held her head upright no matter what anyone said, is frozen in indecision, unable to cope with the emotions that overwhelm her. The girl now claims that such a thing is possible, and the man claims that this is all, and he was not able to find out more, and also still does not know what exactly caused such drastic changes in her, and the young lady says that this is how, and the guy insists that's why he's going to dig a little deeper. Arsel understands he'll never be able to find out what he wants, but what kind of person is he? And is it even possible to laugh at such an absurd scenario? She woke up inside the novel she'd read, in the body of its main character. The guy asked her if she thought he wouldn't be able to get to the truth, and he says that if she allows it, he will try to reveal his fiancée's secret to the best of his ability. The main character then smiles and insists that everything is fair, because it's a secret she's never shared with anyone. The man asks if this includes her brother, after which the girl nods, and the boy realizes that even the boy is unaware of the secret. Arsel claims that no one will be able to reveal her secret, but tells the boy that he can. And the young lady thinks, how can one be so self-confident, after which the man claims that he is sure that he can figure out what is going on. Believe me, she herself knows the truth perfectly well, and the day will come when she'll tell him everything in person. Arsel insists that this is clearly not a secret she should share with those she's soon planning to divorce. She also realizes she's uneasy about the way the conversation has taken this turn and needs to change the subject quickly, after which the young lady asserts that one way or another, if Khan is appointed captain of the Qatari detachment, there will no longer be spies in the Lyre residence. The Duke then asks if he really has such outstanding abilities, and the girl replies that not really, and she thinks that at the moment he is not competent enough, but he is the only one she can trust. The man then wonders if, to put it simply, she trusts some man named Khan, but doesn't even have the slightest bit of trust in him. The girl also says she wants to say something else, after which she asserts that she loves Kale and will remind him of it daily, and since he put so much effort into maintaining their marriage, she thinks she should reciprocate. The man then replies that he understands but thinks he's really lost it. The young lady asks if he's very surprised, to which he replies, a little. So he looks at the young lady coldly, but is surprised. At this point, one of the captain's mates is looking out to sea and eating something. Then his colleague approaches him and claims that it seems there's a ship on the way and there's a good chance of making some money. The guy asks if this is true, after which he claims that it is so timely. But he was ready to go crazy with boredom, after which he says that they should turn the ship around, to which the father agrees. The captain's assistant understands that all this time he had to be in the southern outskirts of the sea because he had to observe the movements of the Lyre House, but now he does not need to do something like that, so he feels a sense of relief. Meanwhile, one of the men hands the boy a map, and the young man thinks that in exchange he has to watch the monsters. And the guardian of the Eastern Sea, Duke Janat, and the reason he was able to keep all the titles was because in the Eastern Sea, monsters put at least 10 people a year into a passionate sleep. And besides, most of the dead were knights of the Janat family who hunted monsters. And of course, the biggest problem in the Eastern Sea were pirates. But as soon as they carry out their dirty deeds, they immediately sail away to the distant western outskirts of the sea, and therefore it is practically impossible to expel them from the territory of the Janat. This is the argument the captain uses to justify himself, and now the guy says that it's not hard to predict what will happen if you don't fight back against the monster, and he asks if the emperor gave any orders for this. Well, then the guy is a little surprised and wonders what the noise is and whether someone is really being shot at, but then he looks in that direction and sees that these are fireworks, after which he asks what it is. He also sees that the people on the ship are completely drunk, and wonders if they have completely lost their minds, and whether they have staged a protest, begging to be eaten quickly. At this point, one of the pirates turns to Mr. Li Jian and asks what he plans to do. The second in command asks what he thinks, after which he simply pats Yuri on the head and asks what he thinks, after which he tells him to head there, because they'll have fun with those revelers. The guy also tells the young man to watch closely and learn. A short time later, they're already pointing a sword at the last man on the ship. The boy then screams, begging for mercy, and the captain's mate realizes he thought he'd have a good time, but it couldn't be more boring, even though the payoff turned out to be substantial. At this point, someone tells the man to wait and insists they should go down to the cabin, after which he practically calls the guy's name, and then apologizes and claims that someone inside wants to see him. The man claims that it would be easier to smash that man's head in, and there would be one less problem. But the young man claims that he thinks it's not that simple, because the man says that he has some business with him, and the young man asks if he's dressed, after which he takes up the sword, and he claims he'll go and look in the cabin. He also breaks into this cabin and asks who they have there. There he sees a man with red hair, and he wonders if they are the same pirates of the Eastern Sea. The young man claims that hundreds of pirate ships ply the Eastern Seas and shouldn't be lumped together. The man becomes a little frightened and says, well, that's how it is, and when the young man approaches him, he only becomes frightened. The captain's mate insists his name is Pasian, and the boy then insists that it's definitely the same name. He's also not mistaken. They say he's the most ferocious pirate in the Eastern Sea. The young man then realizes that he actually received this name in honor of the dog raised by the founder of the Janat clan. The boy then asks what business he has, and the man replies that it's a deal they have made and he wants to offer it to him. The captain's assistant then insists that he should voice his conditions more quickly since they have little time, after which he gets scared and states that, to be brief, he needs to talk to their leader. Li Jian wonders if he's completely lost his mind and suggests he arrange a meeting with the captain. The captain insists they want to support them with money and weapons. The captain's assistant asks what he's talking about, and the young man insists they'll only have one condition in exchange. Li Jian then insists that it couldn't be any other way, suggesting they discuss the matter in their next life. However, the man tells him to wait, because all they need to do is rob the ship they point to, and they'll provide them with money, weapons, and mages, so let them just rob the ship of one family. The guy asks which family. The man replies, the Janat family. A short time later, the agents are already wondering who they're planning to rob. The captain's assistant assures them that they're ready to provide any support. In exchange, all he has to do is rob a ship flying the Janat family flag. The man then asks who the client is, and the captain's assistant insists it's Viscount Parr, and he had to press a little to extract that information. The man then thinks about it for a moment, and realizes that he's Arcel's uncle, and is clearly up to something. Clearly, only a madman would attack Janat's family alone. And now the man tells the boy to contact the information department and tell them to find out if they really were Viscount Parr's subordinates. The young man asks what he will do if the information is confirmed, and the Duke only says that he should find out who is behind him, because he needs to find out whether there are families that have recently been initiated into them, and also find out to which families all the guests who have visited Viscount Parr recently belong. The captain's assistant claims he will immediately begin an investigation, but then they hear someone approaching the office and knocking. He also tells the servants that she's coming in. It turns out to be the main character, and she asks Kale if she can come in. The man, a little embarrassed, replies, "Of course," and the young lady claims he seems busy, to which the Duke replies that no, and he is completely free, and the knight, watching this, cannot help but smile, after which he asserts that he is leaving them. Kel claims he's curious about the important matter she's had since she decided to personally visit his office, as they could have talked in the bedroom. He also tells her to sit on the couch, to which she thanks him. After which she insists that I tell her the matter is very important, but she simply wants to invite someone to the villa. The man asks if there's any problem with the residence's owner wanting to invite a guest, and the woman insists that the person is from the Liar family. And, as already mentioned, she plans to meet the man she intends to appoint as captain of her knightly company. The man then says that if he refuses her, she will still do as she pleases and asks if that's true. The main character then looks at him, but he only looks away, and the young lady asks if she can find out the reason. Kale realizes that this is probably not what the girl expected to hear. Indeed, there's no reason why the head of the family shouldn't date the captain of the nightly company, but to put it bluntly, he's simply jealous. And now the man is moving closer to the young lady. He then asserts that he would prefer her to spend her nights alone with him. The young lady is a little surprised, but then insists that, of course, it's bad form to invite someone over at night. She'll summon him in the morning and send him away before noon, and the young lady asks if that would be better. The Duke is silent for a moment after this, and then realizes he meant something different, but Arcel doesn't need to know about this, so now he claims this option suits him. The young lady then says that it seems there was something serious in the report he recently received, and the man understands that at the moment there is nothing more serious than the situation that arose between them, after which she asks if the girl is worried or for him, and the young lady notes that it is natural. After all, they are married. The man then approaches the young lady again and asserts that he actually has a lot of worries. The main character then thinks he's a little close and asks if she can help him with something, to which he replies that yes, and that she's the only one who can ease his worries. The girl insists that in that case, she absolutely must help him. And the Duke asks if she can do something for him, after which he smiles, and the young lady says that if it makes him feel better, then she agrees. That same evening, they're sitting together on the bed, and the young woman claims she never expected him to make such a request. She also wonders if it will really help him feel better. The young man places his hand on hers, and the young woman recalls how he proposed repeating that night after their wedding. Kale realizes it was a truly sweet night, and one when he felt they were truly in love. But in his thoughts, he wants to devour her lips, just as he didn't want to give even the slightest bit of attention to the man who was claiming the position of captain of the nightly squad. But Arcel has no such thoughts about him. Well, then the main character said that if it would make him feel better, she would agree. The man then asked in shock what she had just said, and the young lady merely stated that she needed to prepare something, and she asked if he would wait for her in the bedroom. Now the man was just drinking wine, and the young lady turned to him, a little surprised, and asked if he was okay, as she thought he was drinking too quickly. The Duke replies that everything is fine, because unlike her, he doesn't get drunk from such a tiny amount of alcohol. The protagonist then asks what doubts are gnawing at him, and suggests that he try sharing them with her. Kale then asks if she thinks it's worth it, and then realizes that he didn't expect at all that after talking about the first wedding night, she would decide to prepare alcohol and offer to have a heart-to-heart talk. The girl now claims that they say that she feels better if she shares her doubts and worries with someone about the man, who thinks that there is nothing like that and he understands that he desires her. Well, he wonders what she'll do if he says it so bluntly. But he still understands that he needs to approach her gradually, and rabbits are very sensitive to the presence of people. They also tend to flee at the slightest sound of a hunter's footsteps, so now he claims he was informed that someone has made a request to the pirates in the nearby sea. But he himself understands that he will ultimately have to avoid answering this question again. He also asks if he should pour the young lady a drink, and the girl replies, "Just a little," and asks what they've asked of him. The man claims they're willing to provide the pirates with money, weapons, and magicians. But in exchange, the pirates must rob a ship with the flag of the Janat family, and of course, those pirates will not be able to attack the Janat family, so he is worried that the client might harm them. The main character then wonders what he is talking about, and whether he is really worrying about other agencies for no reason, claiming that he is so worried about them that he can't even close his eyes. The main character then says that this is how difficult the situation is, since the target is the Janat family, and the customer clearly belongs to the nobility. After which the young lady asks what to do, and the guy thinks how cute she is, and the young lady claims that perhaps this could be their chance. After all, if they send mages, then let them investigate Anna. The man claims this is definitely a good way to kill two birds with one stone, and the young lady asks if this is true. She also understands that from the conversation it follows, that he confidently said that they would send support for the mages, and since they are pursuing a clear goal, this means that talented mages will clearly be sent, and they have no reason to refuse to use them, since there are no mages on the island. After which, the young lady pauses for a moment and asks if those people will really be plunged into eternal sleep. The young lady also asserts that then she will have to reconsider the plan, since they cannot use mages as sea guests. The guy pushes her glass away and replies, no. He also thinks her plan is pretty good. Then he moves closer to her and pushes her onto the bed. And he also claims that they are the ones who took part in the plan to attack the Janot family, so there is nothing wrong with cutting off such people's limbs and throwing them at Anna. This will be punishment for daring to threaten Janot's family. The main character then says, that's how it is, and yet, with a smile on her face, she insists she's glad she was able to help him. Afterwards, the girl closes her eyes and the man asks if she's fallen asleep. He then moves closer to the young lady and claims that this is also a punishment. Punishment for her failure to understand his feelings, after which the man blows out the candles and wishes her good night, then leaves the room. He also recalls how the girl looked at him with a smile on her face and how he almost kissed her. Then the head maid approaches His Highness and the man asks if it's an urgent matter and wonders what she's doing there at this hour. The woman replies that yes, there she is. He then points to the young man standing next to him, and the Duke is shocked to see that it is, in fact, the young lady's brother. Mikkel claims that he and Duke Janot haven't seen each other in a long time. However, His Highness is only wondering what this rascal is up to. Some time ago, at the Tamila Academy, a professor approached a student named Mikkel and asked if he was still considering becoming his apprentice. The young man simply looked at the professor with disgust, then glanced at his grade and saw it was a B+, yet he was the type who always got an A+. And now he understands that he never made mistakes in Professor Tiara's practical classes, but this assessment is clearly revenge for the refusal, and this man's persistence is amazing. The young man understands that he must return to his older sister as soon as possible, so he insists he's not going. Then he turns around and says that since they've discussed everything, he'll go, but the professor tells him to wait. And unfortunately, today he called him to his place for a completely different reason. And then he asks if the guy would like to conduct research outside the academy. The young man understands that if he engages in research outside the academy, he will not receive credit for all the practical courses he applied for this semester, and therefore it would be a mistake to consider this retribution on the part of Professor Tiara. Well, he wonders if he's up to something else and wonders why the man made such an unexpected offer, and that he shouldn't misunderstand since he's not asking because he doesn't trust him. The professor claims he heard the guy arrived. From the eastern part of the continent, the young man replies that yes, and from the attacks, after which the man claims that the Duchy of Janot is just looking for a magician, after which the young man replied that he agrees, and he absolutely wants to go there. A little while later, he finds himself on a ship and sailing toward the island. The boy realizes he hasn't set foot on a ship's deck in a long time. He also remembers sailing off and on a boat when his parents were alive, and also that day with his sister. Now the young man looks sadly at the sea, clenching his fists and realizing that back then he couldn't have imagined things would turn out this way. At this point, the boy also hears someone talking to each other, after which he uses magic and a butterfly appears in the air. This butterfly flies up to the two, who are whispering, and he transmits the sound to the mage. Mikkel hears one of the men ask what this guy is doing on this ship, and another wonders if he's the mage who was summoned. He heard that the mage who arrives this time was ordered to be treated like a sea guest. The young man then wonders what they're talking about, and the man insists that he is, after all, the younger brother of Mrs. Shipowner. The boy wonders if his sister is really called Mrs. Shipowner. One of the pirates claims the boy is the one sent by Professor Tiar. The young man then recalls his butterfly and realizes this will confuse everyone, not only those people but also Duke Janot, who couldn't even imagine that he would be the one coming. So now the guy smiles and thinks he wants to meet his sister as soon as possible and is sure she'll be happy. But at that very moment, the ship tilts, and everyone on it screams out, "What is this? And is it really a monster?" The young man then looks up at the sky and realizes there are waves of mana there, after which he tells them to go there, because there seems to be something there. The pirate then asks if it's really that way and claims that Anna is there. The young man wonders what this is, and another pirate claims that this is the place he was tasked with exploring, and Mikkel wonders if this is why they were looking for the magician. But then a very large wave moves towards them, and one of the people on the ship screams that a tsunami is approaching. Mikhail then uses his powers and lifts the ship into the air, after which the tsunami passes by. Meanwhile, the young man merely addresses the operators and asks them to tell him which way is Janet's mansion, and now he just looks at the Duke, who asks why the hell the guy is there. The young man claims he heard he was looking for a mage to explore a certain sea region, after which he says no, and it seems they were talking about Anna. Kale says he doesn't understand how the guy knew about Anna, but there's no need for him there, and it's none of his business, so let him go back. The blonde claims that he heard from the professor that he needs a wizard to constantly examine Anna, and this sounds like something very serious, so he asks if the man can handle it himself if he refuses the help of a magician. Kale asks if the guy really wants to stay in the mansion so much, but he himself didn't even attend his sister's wedding ceremony properly. The young man then clenches his fists and claims this is why he wants to stay there longer, in order to make sure that, after his graduation from the academy, the man will definitely divorce Arsel. The Duke then claims that it seems he has already made it clear that he is not going to do this, and Mikhail claims that if he wants to plunge into eternal sleep, then he should continue to stand his ground. His sister definitely does not want to be married to a dead man, and he thinks she won't shed a tear at the Duke's funeral. Mikhail also asks with a smile on his face, isn't it important that the little sister misses her little brother madly and that he loves her? He should only think about his sister's happiness. The Duke then sighs and thinks he wants to rip this guy's head off right now. The next morning, the main character asks if a tsunami really happened and wonders if everything is okay. The maid replies that yes, and fortunately they say that thanks to the high breakwater the damage was minimal, but there was no way to help the people who were outside it. The protagonist then realizes that the book described the damage caused by the massive tsunami to the Eastern Sea as indescribable. Houses along the shore were destroyed and swept out to sea, leaving only their foundations. Of course, many others were plunged into a crippling sleep. However, the nobles who were unharmed were preoccupied with the destruction of Kale. They merely remarked that even Duke Geneth, the so-called guardian of the Eastern Sea, could not prevent natural disasters. And now the main character thinks that this time they won't be able to bare their teeth like that, and of course, she's a little worried about Kale's reaction. But now she claims that she's glad that the damage was minimal. The maid replies that yes, and now the residents of the feud are busy praising the sage and the Janot family. The protagonist only smiles after this, realizing that she has saved many lives, and that the Janot family will now also bear the costs of the Tinta forest. If it is cleared out in time and the gold mine is captured, then the Liar family will never know the need for money. This girl says that the woman should order that more attention be paid to the victims, to which she agrees and says that it will be carried out. The main character also looks at the bed and realizes that she is sure that yesterday, after drinking wine, she fell asleep with Kale, but she wonders if it turns out that he didn't sleep there. And it's not that she's worried about his ass on a cold night, but rather she's afraid that she might throw him out and go to bed again, and now she's asking where Kale is. But when the maid looks away, the girl wonders what kind of reaction this is. The woman claims he greeted a guest and is busy dealing with the aftermath of the tsunami. The main character understands that she has no idea how she appeared before him yesterday, but first, she needs to meet and talk to him about business. And the young lady asks if it turns out that he is now in the office because she will need to go to him. But when the main character opens the door, he sees his brother in front of him, and a little while later, the three of them are sitting at the table. Arsel asks if he came there to investigate Anna. The young man, with a smile on his face, replies that yes, that's exactly it. Meanwhile, the Duke gloomily sips his tea, and the main character tells the young man to wait. And he remembers how the Duke told the servants to take the magicians as sea guests and send them to Anna. So now the girl looks at the Duke in shock, wondering if he'll really treat Mikkel like a sea guest. Kale merely asserts that the plan had to be abandoned, after which he grabs the young man by the robes, and he asks how he can send his wife's beloved brother to Anna as a sea guest. The blonde man is only angry after this, but insists it's true, and he agreed to cooperate for his sister's sake. The main character then wonders if that's what they call grabbing someone by the lapels, after which she says what a relief it is, but then turns to Kale and asks if it would be okay if Mikkel found out about Janot's family. The man then asks if there's another option and if he just needs to keep his mouth shut. He also recalls how he talked to the guy yesterday and insisted that he could only stay there under one condition. And he's forbidden to tell outsiders about the Duchy of Janat. The boy then asked why he should fulfill this condition, and the Duke replied that it was because Arcel would hardly want to see the lifeless body of his younger brother. And the young man is now wondering if this man thinks he'll just fall into eternal sleep. Meanwhile, the main character turns to her brother and then places her hand on his, and he claims that he must keep secret everything he learns about the Duchy of Janat, and she asks him to. The young man is a little embarrassed after this, and says that of course he will do it. The agency claims that it is immensely glad that the guy made such a promise, and the main character also thanks him. The young man realizes this game is against the rules, and what the hell kind of secret is this that makes him go so far? The brunette then turns to Arcel. They say a huge tsunami hit the coast yesterday morning, and he was informed that the area where the breakwater was located would be safe. The young woman claims this is truly joyful news, and the man claims he's genuinely curious. How did she find out about everything? And he understands that his fate is to find out this secret, but no matter how much he asks, he is unlikely to get an answer. And the man wonders how deeply he must penetrate her heart for her to share her secret with him. Now he also claims that he has also ordered the purchase of the Tinta forest. The Liar family will also be responsible for the management fees, as promised. Mikkel then asks if they mean Tint is a poisonous forest. The girl replies that this is true and that she bought it, and also thinks this place will be an ideal research site for him. But she herself thinks that, in truth, he was bought because of the gold mine it contains. The young man, meanwhile, says that sister is the best, and the Duke at this time turns to the girl and says that the one she wants to make captain of the nightly detachment of Liar has also arrived. The main character then says that this is Khan, after which she rises from her seat and claims that she cannot meet him in this form. She also needs to change her clothes urgently, after which she leaves these two in the room, and they are silent for a while. The young man then turns to the Duke and asks if he's about to leave, but the man merely asks why he should leave the reception room of his own villa. Mikkel insists it's the Liar family's business, and the Duke claims that the affairs of the Liar family are also the affairs of the Janat family. The young man then cries out that when he graduates from the academy, all this will end. A little while later, the main character returns to the room and asks if they have been waiting for a long time. The two guys, seeing her, are a little embarrassed, and the main character also turns to the knight and tells him to go inside. After which he does so, and the young lady claims that she just ran into him on the way there, and that he is a knight of the Liar family named Khan. The man, seeing the Duke, is a little surprised and asks if this is His Highness Duke Janat. He also claims to be a knight of the Liar family named Khan. The Duke then examines the boy, and he understands that he does not bow to anyone who is not his master, and he did not think that he saw a well-bred knight in front of him. But the problem is only in swordsmanship. Kyle then rises from his seat and declares that he will leave them, as he has some business to attend to, and they can talk calmly. The main character then says, "That's how it is," while her brother just smiles. And with his whole appearance, he seems to say that the Duke was a failure and also says goodbye to him. The man then passes by the knight and then leaves. Then he addresses Shiata, and he tells her to gather information about the Tinta forest and whether there's anything valuable there besides the poison. He tells her to investigate all the goods circulating along the Liar family's trade route and find out what products they mainly distribute, and also learn a little more about the Liar family. The knight at this time asks whether the lady really wants to appoint him captain of the Liar knightly squad, and he asks how he can assume such an important position. The girl insists that, of course, she's not asking him to immediately organize a knightly troop and assume command, but let him just start preparing everything necessary to become captain of the knightly squad before she heads to Liar's residence, and let the guy not worry about the financial part and just slowly recruit talented people. After all, she knows that at the academy he graduated from, he had several people who were close in spirit, and especially among them, a man named Dane stands out. After this, he's a little surprised and wonders how the lady knew about him and whether she's already studied his entire circle. After which he claims that the problem is that there are times when he behaves somewhat inappropriately, so he is wary of bringing him to the mistress. However, the girl says that the guy should bring him anyway, because she needs him. Or, to be more precise, she needs the information guild run by his family. The guy then asks if Dane really does something like that, and the girl replies that she is sure of it, and that the family's financial situation has simply been undermined by a lack of money. The reason why Janat was able to quickly take control of the Eastern Sea and dominate the area as a pirate and as a guardian of the Eastern region was because he paid special attention to information despite having enormous military power. A group that collects and processes information is something the Liar family does not have. And then she remembered that one of Khan's classmates was originally named Dane, and he was the prominent leader of a declining information guild. In the original, Dane's family faces bankruptcy, but the future could be completely different if someone provides them with financial assistance. The guy then says that it will be done, but the lady says that the academy he graduated from is located in the central part of the country, so he knows nothing about the Eastern Sea and the surrounding areas of the Liar family's possession. The main character says that it's okay, because from now on, the Liar family will not use sea routes and for the protection of the family. She needs people from the central part of the country, those who are like her in spirit and who can rebuild the county of Liar. The young man then asserts that he dares not doubt the abilities of the head of the Liar house. After all, Liar is a family with strong roots. At this point, the protagonist understands the situation. When the entire support staff was fired, the guy intended to restore his family and build up the information guild that had taken over his fallen, as well as create a new search squad. At this time, the young man claims that there is a problem with financing. But the girl says that he does not need to worry about this at all, and she will explain everything in more detail when she arrives in Liar, because this is not something you can say to someone else's family, after which the knight says that he understood her. And then he bows and is about to leave, but the young lady turns to him and affirms that in the future, Liar will be no different from the families of the central part of the country, and she wants him to bring people who will help lay the foundation for this. Those who will be as devoted as he is. The guy then gets down on one knee, and he takes the mistress's hand in his own, and also asserts that he will do everything possible to fulfill the order of the head of the family. The main character claims that she is counting on him and understands that, as expected, it would be a great waste if the guy disappeared in accordance with the bad ending that she expected. The girl then invites her brother to go have breakfast, but the young man stops her, and he claims that he needs to exchange a couple of phrases with that person, after which the guy goes out into the corridor, uses her magic to create a bird from it, after which this bird lands on the knight's shoulder. Mikkel smiles at this time and understands that the information guild is a tool that depends on how you use it. It can serve both good and evil, and let's say it can be used for its ability to move unnoticed and as a dangerous poison that can dry out people. So if he wants Arcel's hands to stay clean, then someone else has to take on all the dirty work. After which he returns to his sister, and the girl asks what they didn't talk about. But her brother only smiles after this and insists it's a secret. A little while later, the maid turns to the master, and he claims that, as he requested, she collected information about who came into contact with Viscount Parr. Many saw the Viscount talking to the Duke at the wedding ceremony. Dikaz and then several secret meetings took place, and now they have evidence. Viscount Parr gained access to Duke Dihas's private villa. The Duke remains silent for a while after that, and then he asks what wedding ceremony it is. The woman replies that it is his. Meanwhile, the guy thinks that Duke Dihas cares so much about the hierarchy that he is even ready to contact the operators in order to overtake the Janat family. And the man now thinks that if his father were alive, no one would dare to do something like that, so now he says that this man doesn't put him in anything. He also orders that Paisian be told to accept their support first. The woman then tries to object, but the Duke insists that if they want to hide their superiority, then they should accept that proposal, and as soon as they notice that Duke Dihas has started to do something, then let them immediately report to him. And the man also understands that if we're talking about something that's bothering him, it's the fact that Viscount Parr is Arcel's uncle. So now the man is asking her to find out the terms of the deal between the two. A little while later, the young lady's brother is already on the ship, and he addresses his sister, and also asks if she said that they were going to the island of Janat.